All sports, all the time.
There's heroes and there's legends. Heroes get remembered. Legends never die.
This is the Spoken Podcast.
Hold your ears, folks. It's showtime.
I'm your host, Lance Twidwell.
Man, that kid, he can ball, man. He can ball.
Touchdown, Kansas City!
Patrick freaking Mahomes, baby!
Let's talk some sports because that's what we're here to do.
You are tuned in to The Spoken.
Is the Spoken Podcast. I'm your host, Lance Twidwell. Here inside the Spoken Studios, my guys, Trevor Twidwell.
What's good?
And Eddie Ortiz.
Yo.
Episode 170 in full swing, full motion, man. We are so happy to be here with you guys and for you to be here with us, whether you're live streaming, whether you're YouTubing or you're podcasting. Thank you so much for being here with us on this eventful weekend in June. We just started up June. My brother, Trevor Twidwell, our co-host here, just celebrated his birthday yesterday. We're actually going to be celebrating that tonight, of course, but he got another year older yesterday, and we appreciate all the people that gave a shout out on the Spoken group yesterday and on Twitter. You guys are awesome. So Trevor, happy birthday to you, man, and we're glad to have you back here for another year and a fun-filled adventure here at the Spoken Podcast. Eddie's here on consecutive weeks. That feels so weird saying, but we have our guy here. We're going to get to the Eddie Hour in a little bit. I'm sure he's got some thought-provoking questions because there's been some great news. Well, not some great news, but news in general when it comes to sports, and we have the NBA Finals. I'm sure he's got some questions about that. We have, of course, Hold This L that's going to end the show as we do each and every week, and I'm sure we're going to have some eventful L's in the world of sports. But we are very blessed and honored to have our guy back for the second time, Mr. Seth Keysor from The Athletic KC. He also is the writer of the Chief in the North newsletter, and this guy just has incredible breakdowns, incredible content, and whenever we get an opportunity to get him on the show, man, we make sure and get that done, and we're really looking forward to getting Seth's thoughts on all things Chiefs and the latest developments when it comes to Orlando Brown Jr., Tyreek Hill, draftees, all those things. We're going to get to all that with our guy Seth Keysor. I'm really excited to get to his thoughts in just a little bit. But I want to start with my guys here, Trevor and Eddie, because it's June, and this is a time where a lot of times we don't have a lot to talk about. You know, it's a slow season, so any and everything that comes out can sometimes be inflated, blown out of proportion. That can happen. That's bound to happen. I think it's inevitable. But then there's sometimes a story comes out, a story leaks, or things are being said that you can't help but ignore, or you can't help but acknowledge and not ignore. And I think that's what's happening here in Kansas City right now. So, as we all know, Tyreek Hill got traded this offseason. We know that he's no longer a Chief. He's now with the Miami Dolphins, and he got himself a fat stack of cash. Got himself a record-breaking, historic contract, the highest, the richest contract in NFL history for a wide receiver. And you would think that naturally Tyreek Hill is living his best life, having fun, no regrets. You know, he enjoyed his time in Kansas City. He built a Hall of Fame career here, won a Super Bowl, went to several AFC championships, won a ton of games, put up a ton of numbers. And now he's moving on to greener pastures. Literally green, meaning he got a lot of money. And I think a lot of us have made do with the fact that he's gone. It sucks. I'm still not over it. I'm still dealing with the acceptance of that. And I think it's probably going to take some time. It's going to have to probably take Sky Moore and a few other guys to have some big seasons for me to feel better about it. And I know that we've all been in relationships here. Eddie, maybe one or two. But, you know, Trevor and I have had a few. And the thing that whenever a relationship ends, I want to believe that you leave on good terms. Ideally, you want to leave on good terms. But there's been instances where I've heard, you know, through the grapevine or even seeing things on social media, you know, in your time of growing up and learning how to be in a relationship, that people got some things to say about you. And it hits you kind of weird. It's kind of an odd thing to see because you thought that you left on good terms or the relationship wasn't that bad. But according to this person, they had a lot to say or they felt a lot differently than you did. That is the exact situation that's going on here with Tyreek Hill and the Kansas City Chiefs. And we have proof. So I don't know if you guys had heard the clips that went down this week from Tyreek Hill's new podcast that is set to debut this next week. But him and his co-host had some thoughts, and I actually want to start with the first clip that not a lot of people paid attention to, but I think it's something that needs to be heard because, in all respect to Tyreek Hill, he did say this, so I don't want to just play the hot part of the clip. I want you guys to hear the first part because I got some thoughts on this as well.
First 4 years were great, man. I got a chance to play with the greatest. I feel like the greatest tight end of all time, Travis Kelce. You know, Big Zeus. You know, so it was great, man. The first 4 years were great. Then Patrick Mahomes came in and just changed everything around. You know, the young phenom, different, throwing the ball at about 85 yards, crazy. You know, so changed the game, crazy, man. So it definitely helped the team out. We went to the 2 Super Bowls, we won 1. You know, just like Drew said, we went to, I believe, 3 AFC championships, or 4. You know, so it was great. It was great, man. Everything inside the building was great. You know, so I have no complaints.
Now, I need you to be candid. I need honesty from you or Drew. Because if it was so great, what happened to last year to now we sitting in Miami?
I mean, Drew, you want to answer that first, or you want me to get into it? Because I got
questions that need answers.
So that's the initial teaser, and then there's a second clip, and I'm sure that most of you guys have already heard this one. If you haven't, and if you already have, you're going to hear it again. Here we go.
And once the season was over, we reached out to the Chiefs and we said, "Hey, you know, we want to keep it going." Tyreek wanted to be there. You know, Tyreek wanted to be in Kansas City.
That's you say that again. Tyreek wanted to be in KC.
Wanted to be in Kansas City.
Wanted to be in KC.
We tried to do an extension with them.
Tried, man.
So I got a follow-up question on that. All right. So this wasn't a situation that you demanded a crazy amount of money, right?
No,
this was a situation where you know what you're capable of. Drew knows what you're capable of.
Correct.
The team knows what you're capable of, but they just didn't utilize you. Now follow up on that.
Right.
Do you think this was a situation to suppress his stats, to drop that value down when it came to a potential trade or a signing?
You know,
no lie.
All right, so you've heard both clips now officially. In the first clip, Tyreek acknowledges both Travis Kelce and Patrick Mahomes and how Kelce is to him and to most of us here the greatest tight end to ever live, which is to hear. It's a great thing to see that he reflects on a teammate of his that he acknowledges to be great at what he does. That's always good to hear. No matter where this player goes or how long they stay, it's good to know that they had a relationship like that. He's both nice and right about that, in my opinion. He then says that Patrick came in and changed everything, and then the success followed. So he's acknowledging what Patrick meant to him and meant to the team, and how he was this young phenom, as he called him, and throwing these 85-yard bombs, things of that nature. So the first clip I have no problem with, because I felt like it was good to see. But obviously you hear his co-host try to get through the nice stuff, all the cordial things, all the pleasantries, and he's trying to get to the nitty-gritty about all the things that want to be said. Let me preface all this by stating, this co-host has no control of this show. This is some unknown guy. Tyreek is the star of the show, and they have Drew Rosenhaus, who's a super agent on the show. You guys ever seen the movie Jerry Maguire? That's what he is in real life. This guy is an absolute monster at what he does. Drew Rosenhaus is the greatest NFL agent to ever live, and it's not close. So these are the ones that have all the power here. This co-host is just simply asking the questions that Tyreek and probably Drew had him writ up and asked and made for him to ask, because they want this to intentionally entice and provoke people. Which leads to the second clip. When the second clip is from the first clip, it goes right into it, where the guy asks the questions. Okay, so how did we get here, basically? And in the second clip, we hear Tyreek's agent, Drew Rosenhaus, claiming that Tyreek wanted to stay in KC with Tyreek in the background, telling Drew to repeat that point to drive it home. They tried to make an extension happen. If Tyreek wanted to stay with the Chiefs, he would have stayed with the Chiefs. From every report we had gotten leading up to that week of him being traded to the Dolphins, the Chiefs and Tyreek had a deal in place that he was going to sign. It wasn't until Davante Adams got traded to the Raiders and got a record-breaking extension that things went sideways. Tyreek wanted to be the highest-paid receiver in the game, and he wouldn't budge from that. That's the point here.
That's what he wanted.
We've accepted and respected that decision. Go get your money.
Of course.
But I'm not going to sit here and listen to him lie and say that he wanted to stay in KC when he really didn't at the end of the day. Because if that was his desire, he would have taken what the Chiefs were offering, which was competitive. It wasn't as if the Chiefs weren't trying to keep Tyreek. It would have been completely different had the Chiefs not shown interest in extending Tyreek. Rosenhaus and Tyreek even admitted that in the conversation that was happening. I mean, go read anything, go listen to anything that Tyrann Mathieu said about how the Chiefs never even offered him an extension. They were moving off of Tyrann, and they showed him that. They showed us that. That's not what happened here with Tyreek. His co-host then suggests that this wasn't a situation in which Tyreek was demanding insane money. Tyreek says, no, in response. Yet he asked to be traded because the Chiefs weren't matching his contract demands and the Dolphins were. So which one is it? Did you demand a contract superior to Davante Adams or not? And then the co-host continues spewing this moronic rhetoric by suggesting that Tyreek, the team knew, he's suggesting to Tyreek that the team knew what Tyreek was capable of, but just didn't utilize him. And then, the worst part of this entire thing, of this little teaser clip, this co-host, who should have been fired immediately after asking this, unless, of course, Tyreek and Drew asked him to ask these questions, asks Tyreek and Drew Rosenhaus if they believe that the Chiefs tried to suppress his stats to drop Tyreek's value down if, in fact, it came down to trading him. Say that out loud to yourself. Say that out loud. A team wants to suppress a player's stats to hurt his trade value. How in any way does that help the Chiefs in the current or future tense in all of this? In any of this? Suppressing Tyreek's stats would have only hurt the Chiefs' offense last season and would have only hurt the Chiefs' return value in a trade. So why in the world would the Chiefs do anything that stupid? But speaking of his alleged suppressed stats, I ran some numbers this week. If you haven't already followed me on Twitter, it's at Lance the Spoken. So I went and I did the 5 greatest receivers in NFL history in my eyes. Randy Moss, Terrell Owens, Jerry Rice, Larry Fitzgerald, Calvin Johnson. Those are the 5 best. You can make a case for Antonio Brown, other guys like that, but those are, to me, foundational members of the greatest receivers ever. I went and looked up each and every one of their career stats as far as targets per season. Randy Moss, in his entire career, averaged 108 targets per season. Terrell Owens averaged 124 targets per season. Jerry Rice averaged 126 targets per season. Larry Fitzgerald averaged 137 targets per season. And Calvin Megatron Johnson, the monster that he was, averaged 146 targets per season. Do you guys know how many targets Tyreek Hill had last season?
A lot.
159.
That's what, like, wasn't that first or second in the league?
It was first in the league. Outside of maybe Davante Adams.
I was going to say, I think Davante was the leader.
So the 5 greatest receivers in NFL history, their career average targets per season were nowhere near close to what Tyreek Hill had last season. But yet I'm supposed to believe that the Chiefs are trying to suppress Tyreek's stats. Do you guys know that he had 25 more targets last season than Travis Kelce? The most utilized tight end in the league, including Darren Waller, Mark Andrews, all these other guys. The guy that has 6 straight 1,000-yard seasons. He had 25 more targets last season.
We were forcing him to drop the ball, too, I believe. Yeah.
I'll get to that in a second.
Yeah.
The only 2 things that suppressed... Actually, I'm going to do it right now. The only 2 things that suppressed Tyreek Hill's stats last season were his left and right hands with 8 drops that led to 4 interceptions.
Right.
That's almost half of the interceptions Patrick Mahomes threw last season. If Tyreek and this dipshit co-host thought his stats were suppressed in 2021, wait until 2022 when he gets to play with Kellen Moore with a cooler name as his quarterback. Oh, and now Tyreek wants to let the Miami media know that he knew that this clip he put out there was clickbait, even though he just said days before he tweeted out, quote, "If it didn't come from the source, don't believe it." Just really odd behavior from a formerly adored Chief. And here's the point in all of this that I want to make clear. And I'm always pro-player. I'll defend players over teams 99% of the time. Almost 100% of the time. The Chiefs clearly wanted to keep Tyreek. Yes, they have other players to pay. They got other things to take care of. But they viewed him as a franchise commodity. They viewed him as the historic player that he is. They did what they could within reason. And this is coming from the guy that initially was blowing the Chiefs up about this move. I was saying it was the dumbest move the Chiefs have ever made. I was starting to question Brett Veach. I was coming at them hard about this shit. So for me to see it from this point of view, you know there had to be some context added to it as time went on. So this dishonesty from Tyreek is only making matters worse for him and the optics surrounding him. I mean, the guy hasn't even been a Dolphin for more than, 2 months? He's not even cashing his initial checks yet, and he's already out here having buyer's remorse. It's clear and evident that Tyreek Hill is not happy with the situation he got, even though it's what he wanted. Otherwise, why are you having the Chiefs' names in your mouth on your first initial podcast?
His build brand. That's all he's doing.
Then of course, we heard the response this week from Andy Reid, Chiefs head coach. He was asked from 810 Sports Radio WHB's Todd Lebo, longtime radio host out here in Kansas City. Well, asked the question to Andy Reid. I actually have that question ready to go. I want you guys to actually hear this so you can dissect it for yourselves, because I feel that it's only fair to the context of the conversation or the trading and remarks. Then I'll give you guys my takeaway on it.
Coach, I hate to ask you something I'm not sure if you know about, but Tyreek Hill's got this podcast coming out. They dropped a teaser for it yesterday. It's tough to discern exactly where this is going to go with the podcast, but it seemed to be an intimation that perhaps he was suppressed here, play calling wise. Are you aware? Have you seen that clip?
I haven't, but you're good at asking those questions. You know, you shock jock. You know, that's a very dumb question, but that's all right. We'll go on to another one. Especially if you know I haven't heard it. I mean, that's not.
Well, I don't know if you have.
Yeah,
it was yesterday.
Yeah, whatever.
Our producer Clay Windler, I had posted my thoughts about Andy's response to this, and our producer Clay Windler, he said he believes that Andy responded this way because he doesn't want to talk about Tyreek anymore. Okay, that's fair. But to me, I completely disagree. This, to me, only adds more questions from the Chiefs side of things. Had Andy simply downplayed it or gave a canned statement like he does when it comes to literally anything else, I would tend to believe that the desire to dive deeper into this topic with Andy would quickly dissipate from the local media. Instead, it's now the biggest story surrounding the Chiefs. So if Andy didn't want to talk about Tyreek, he should have helped make this into a non-story by neither not addressing it or giving up a canned response. My guy Kyle Henning, actually from the Kingdom Says podcast, we've had him on the show, who I love and respect so much, was trying to tell me yesterday that to him it's a non-story and that Andy Reid wasn't wrong in being dismissive to Todd Lebo's question and to Todd Lebo himself. But here's my thing. If Andy doesn't have anything to add or has no response, then just say that. Just say that, Andy. Andy isn't just an elite coach. I was telling Trevor this before the show. He's not just an elite head coach. Andy's elite at handling the media. After every frustrating loss, guys, what do we always hear when the Chiefs have a bad loss or a dramatic loss where they just played like shit? We saw a lot of this last season early in the year. The Chiefs are just playing like shit, losing frustrating games they have no business losing, just playing under the standards that they have given us to keep them to or hold them to. But what does Andy always say? Quote, I got to do better. This is on me. It's the same lines each and every time that we all hate, but we all know what he's doing by saying that.
Humility, yeah.
So why did this bother him so much? What? This clip from Tyreek's new podcast upsets Andy Reid more than a loss? I have a hard time believing that. This is what I think. We all know that Andy heard the clip before this press conference, or at worst, heard about it and what was said. The Chiefs have an insanely good PR staff. Trust me. They listen to everything, including us. Trust me. They know what's being said about them. You don't think Andy knew about Tyreek's show. And again, if this isn't relevant, if it doesn't or shouldn't matter, why wasn't it treated that way by Andy Reid? Why did he have such an emotional reaction, so much so that he called a man who's simply doing his job a shock jock and then said it was a dumb question when it clearly wasn't? This reaction from Andy Reid tells me one thing. This clip from Tyreek's podcast hurt him. And you know what? I get it. Because it should. It hurt me as a fan. Imagine being the man that drafted Tyreek in the midst of him having a troubled past. Whether that past was of Tyreek's own doing or not, Andy Reid stood by him and drafted him despite the backlash he received by local dorks like Bob Fesco, who literally invited Andy Reid and John Dorsey to come to his house and explain to his daughters why they drafted Tyreek. And then, when shit really hit the fan, in a recording that was edited and made out to make Tyreek sound like a terrible human being, and damn near everyone turned their back on him, the Chiefs didn't. Andy Reid didn't. They stood by his side when the truth came out. Then they gave him a $54 million extension. And since then, he has been one of the most productive receivers in the game and the most deadly weapon in the NFL. None of that happens without Andy Reid. Tyreek Hill owes Andy Reid everything. And for him to utilize this ridiculous question or suggestion from his co-host to tease his podcast debut episode is hurtful to Andy Reid and the Chiefs as a whole. It's a slap to the face. And yeah, Tyreek didn't respond to that question or suggestion in the clip, and maybe he turns down the idea that the Chiefs try to suppress his stats or didn't know his worth. But at this point, knowing that Tyreek used this clip in particular to entice and provoke his audience, it doesn't matter what his response to the question is. The clip and how the clip was used spoke for him. And it's a damn shame that instead of reminiscing on the success while enjoying his historical money, making contract while appreciating the coach that got him both, he made a mockery out of all of it. Andy Reid was clearly hurt by this, and he took it out on the wrong person, which was Todd Lebo. That's where I stand on it. Trevor, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, from a marketing side, it's actually a brilliant move on Tyreek's end if he's wanting to build a brand, and which is exactly what he's doing. He's trying to build a podcast. He's been working on that clothing brand for a while now. He's in Miami. He's catering to a new market and new people. If anything, shock jock, it's this podcast, right? So, I mean, I'm not mad at Tyreek really that much. I didn't expect much more, or I didn't expect much else from him. I'm not going to attack anyone's character, but he's never been the brightest guy, if I'm being honest. He has his past because of choices he made. He got involved with people and had issues with people because of choices he made. And he's another choice that's going into the tool belt of Tyreek Hill. Like, he's just not. I'm not going to say much else, but I just don't think he's the brightest guy, and this just shows that further. And plus, I don't like clips. I'm never going to make an entire judgment off of a clip of a podcast. Granted, they probably use this as the highlight for the clip because the rest of the podcast is probably trash. That's the only segment that's probably noteworthy, that's worth listening to. But yes, that is the only thing that is shock jock about this entire situation. Someone asking a question about it should not get shut down. I mean, I get it. It probably struck a nerve for Andy, and he has every right to shut that question down if he wants to. But as far as Tyreek Hill goes, listen, I love Tyreek still, always will. I don't really like him very much right now because I feel like that's pretty low and petty and, quite frankly, false. The idea that, granted, it wasn't his idea. It was the co-host kind of baiting him into that idea that we were suppressing him. I mean, go watch the playoff game this past postseason against the Bills. Did it look like we were suppressing Tyreek Hill? Were we going to him in the biggest moments? You know, giving him the chance to shine when he did. Him being an integral part of that offense, pulling off that victory. I don't know how you can say we're suppressing him when we're giving him the ball in the biggest moments and he's succeeding and we're giving him that stage. It's a little odd. And quite a claim. And yeah, I listen, man. When players leave teams, there's a lot of this stuff. I mean, listen, remember when Jamal? I know this is a much smaller scale, but when Jamal Charles went to the Broncos, he obviously another guy who wasn't very well spoken. If I'm being honest, I'm not trying to take a shot at him, but it was just naturally was not a well spoken guy. Didn't express his feelings and what he was wanting to really get out there very well. when he was talking about I always wanted to be a Bronco. We know he didn't really mean he always wanted to be a Bronco, but like he was kind of catering to the fan base there at that time because it was the next chapter of his life, and that was just where he was in the moment. I think that's kind of similar to what Tyreek is in right now. Granted, he's very aware of what he's doing. Like I said, this is very much brand management. This is very much him pushing a new brand, and because he wasn't doing that stuff here. He wasn't like, saying like crazy because he didn't have much to say. He wasn't building a podcast here. This is a new chapter for now. He has some kind of, he's leaving a championship team with a team that gave him the opportunity. Now he can kind of have some things in his arsenal to kind of go out there and start a podcast, have things to say, have someone else throw the idea out instead of him bringing it up himself to where he can talk about it. And it's just, we all know what he's doing.
And he feels empowered now because he's the man coming into Miami.
And now he's the highest paid receiver in the league now.
Yes.
He's
got the clout.
Yeah. He's the biggest. So this is just immature, honestly. It's just an immature thing, and it's. I don't really have much of a grief with him personally. I just feel like this is kind of who Tyreek Hill's always been. We just loved him because we had the rose-colored glasses on while he was here. He's always kind of been like kind of a goofy, not well-spoken guy that kind of just says whatever comes off the top of the dome. And I love him, and I respect him, and I'm forever grateful and in his depth for what he did here. But the shots and the marketing and the way he's going about it, like you said, regardless of what the podcast looks, maybe he cleans it up and throughout the rest of the episode, maybe certain things don't look as bad, but the fact that he used that clip and the fact that he used that to draw eyeballs and ears is petty as fuck. That's super petty, man. Especially for everything. Like, without the Chiefs, you're no one.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, regardless of if you were guilty of anything you did in your past, regardless of what work you put in to even attempt to get into the draft, regardless of all that, no one was taking a chance on you. You slid way further in the draft than you wanted to. The Chiefs are the one that gave you the chance and put you in an offense, honestly, that was best suited for you to succeed in Andy Reid's offense. There's not a better landing spot for Tyreek Hill to ever land. And we've discussed this ad nauseum on the show. So the ungratefulness is the only problem I really have for Tyreek Hill here. That's just, he just sounds like an ungrateful child that was spoiled, quite frankly. Glossing over how great the first 4 years were, and then glossing over how the great impact of Patrick Mahomes, and then making the biggest clip about you being underutilized possibly, and you wanting to be in Kansas City. Nah, man, if Kansas City was the number one thing that you wanted, you would be here. You're a grown-ass man. You can make grown-ass decisions. You can take a few mil less to stay here. The Chiefs weren't going to pay you that money. The Chiefs had a deal, like you said. The Chiefs had a deal in place. You were set. You were selected. You were good. Everything was on the table.
Exactly.
Yeah, everything was agreed upon. And you ripped it up. You and your agent ripped up the contract that was ready to go.
When his co-host said you weren't asking for this insane amount of money, he's like, no. The clip, yes, you were.
Right.
Stop lying about it. You know what you wanted, and no one's mad at you about that.
Yeah.
But quit pretending like you just said that you wanted Kansas City was the objective to stay here in Kansas. No, it wasn't.
Yeah. You can't.
You just want to get paid.
Both things can't be true in that situation. Usually, there's a caveat to where both things can be true, but in this situation, if Kansas City was the first thing on your list and you wanted to be there, wanted to be in Kansas City. Whoa, say that again. Wanted. He wanted to be in Kansas City. If that was the case, you're a big boy, right? You're making big boy money now, right? If Kansas City was where you wanted to be, you'd take a little less to stay in that city you really, really wanted to be in. It's obvious you wanted the money. And look, I'm not mad about that.
Nobody is.
We all supported that.
Be.
Obviously, it hurt at first. The initial reactions were rough, right? But you can't have your cake and eat it too now, man. You can't go back and retroactively shit on the team that made you everything that you are.
Right.
It's a bad look. This isn't a shot at Tyreek Hill, but I'm not very surprised with him being like out there publicly and talking about these things and it sounding coherent and or making any fucking sense. So it is what it is.
Yeah, I feel like he's taking a shot at the Chiefs because, quote unquote, he wanted to be here. But when he ripped that contract up, I mean, obviously there was reports that they had agreed to a contract, so there was obviously no signature, so there's no contract. But I feel like when he told the Chiefs that he was not going to sign that contract to pretty much see if they can give him a better contract, I think that at that point the Chiefs were just like, no.
It's out of their hands.
It either take it or leave it, and I think it hurt his ego. I think it hurt Tyreek's ego, and I think that's why now you see him bashing the Chiefs because, quote unquote, he wanted to be here, but when they crushed his ego, and I was like, "Fuck you," kind of like that. But obviously, the clips are kind of like a cliffhanger. We really don't know what Tyreek's response to that is. All we are doing is speculating on the question. That's literally all we're doing because there was literally no answer to that question. So when the podcast premieres, we can see Tyreek Hill say, "Oh hell no! Why would no?" It's like, "No, I don't think none of that," and blah blah blah. Or complete the opposite. You can say, "Yes, I feel like this and that." So I feel like we're speculating out of nothing at the moment. I don't know when the podcast comes out. June 10th. So I'll wait till June 10th and kind of see what he says and kind of put my thoughts on this whole thing. Form my opinion on that because right now I can't form an opinion because all I'm going off is a question. I'm not going off an answer that Tyreek gave. Yeah. Right now we're just speculating. And
well, can I say something to that real quick? And I don't want you to stop what you're going to know you have more to say. But this is what I'll say to that in response. The only reason why I have formed my opinion so foundationally on this is because of the fact that Tyreek controls the narrative with this because this is his own podcast. It's literally no different. Eddie.
He's come out and even said it was baked.
It's literally no different than you right now telling me or you asking me a question right now, and it's a controversial question, and I cut it right there before I respond, and then post that on the spoken because I want people to be enticed by it. So my point is that was Tyreek's response to the question, was utilizing this because we aren't certain what was to be said. It'd be one thing if like Pro Football Talk or Good Morning Football or ESPN interviewed Tyreek and they made that clip. No. Yeah, Tyreek can't control the narrative because they cut off his response. No. But he did it. He chose to do that. Yeah. That's the response.
His co-host was leading him on that question, but we're not going to act like they didn't discuss these things beforehand.
And he has to approve of that.
I get it. Yes, that's his show. I think they wrote the questions. They know the questions that are going to be asked. They know what way they're going to be asked. But yet again, we're making speculations out of a question. There's no answer. Until I hear the answer, yes. Again, you're speculating on him it's because it's his podcast and he's controlling that. I get it.
He's even came out and said that it was bait.
Exactly. So when you say the question in itself is ridiculous? Because we all know he wasn't suppressed here. And why in the world would the Chiefs try to dilute his trade value? That makes no sense.
Yeah, we all know how ridiculous that statement is.
But like Tyreek said, it was bait, and it worked perfectly because he got everybody riled up here in Kansas City, and it made the podcast a talking point.
He's becoming the villain.
So
now
not everybody's going to tune into the podcast, and then they're going to hear his answer. It's going to be like, oh, I can't be mad at Tyreek.
Yeah. You don't feel though that you already know enough about what this is now? Because to be honest with you, I'm not even interested to find out what he says because I feel like I already know. Because he's going to turn it down. He's going to say, "Oh no, man, I love my time there." He's going to play it all in. The point, though, is that it's the intent behind the initial teaser. The teaser is what I have a problem with.
I guess I'm just not seeing that side. I guess I don't know. I'm just not seeing what you're seeing.
Tyreek, he's simply trying to get ears and eyeballs to his branding.
To his podcast. That's all it is. I don't see anything bad about him being asked a question, him putting out a trailer or a teaser or a cliffhanger, whatever the fuck you want to call it. I can't form my opinions or thoughts on just speculation. I want to hear what he says. I mean, yes, we can sit here and speculate, but then when the podcast comes out, we're just going to look retarded because it was a completely different thing. You know what I mean? So I get it. I get it why people are mad. I get why Chiefs fans are mad. Obviously, the way the question was asked, it's Tyreek Hill. He left the way he left. Chiefs fans are still hurt. So
I'm just more confused because I don't know why you would use your legacy in Kansas City, which was a profound legacy, one of the greatest stretches a wide receiver has ever had, success and production-wise, why you would use that legacy as clickbait. It doesn't make sense to me. What is the point? Like, if you know that your podcast is going to get numbers, you could have literally used anything else to promote it. Why would you promote something negative from something so great?
Well,
it doesn't make sense.
Let me ask you this, though. Why would you expect Tyreek, a guy that chose the money over his over the team that gave him everything, why would you expect any less?
Here's the reason why. Because I was supposed to believe I'd take him at his word, right? Because a man is only as good as his word, right? In his initial press conference with the Dolphins, he talked about how he has no regrets with Kansas City. He loved his time there. He had nothing but glowing things to say about his time in Kansas City. There was nothing negative.
Yeah.
Now you want to flip it 6-7 weeks later.
Yeah.
And try to flip it on its head. It's only confusing. I'm not necessarily upset because what's been done's done. We can't do anything about him being gone. My point is, I'm just confused as to why you would take something that literally got you paid the money you got. You don't make that money if you don't have the time you had in Kansas City.
You're not in Miami making the most money in the league.
So why would you make a negative out of it? It's only been good for you.
Yeah.
You've only prospered off of it. What good came from you making a negative connotation out of all this? It makes no sense. Sure, you might get a few thousand more clicks on your podcast. Is that worth it? Is that worth taking the legacy you built in Kansas City and basically shitting on it? Because that's what he did. By using this clip as a negative. Oh, didn't you think they suppressed you? Don't you think they didn't understand how to utilize you, motherfucker? They utilized him perfectly. He is a 3-time All-Pro in Kansas City. He won a Super Bowl. He's a part of the Wasp play that won the Chiefs the Super Bowl.
And that's probably going to be his answer.
Exactly. So why would you use the clip to make it look like you might have something negative to say?
And if anything,
it makes no sense.
It doesn't make sense for this being the biggest reason. He's the highest paid receiver in the league.
Ever.
So
what's the
you were
negatives?
suppressed
Exactly.
that much to become the highest paid receiver ever? That doesn't make much sense, man. Like, if we were trying to suppress you and we got 10 picks out of you, it literally makes no sense on any angle you want to go at it with. This is why I'm just not impressed. All he's doing is this is him creating a brand in his new market. That's literally all this is. This is shock jock. This is what Andy Reid was alluding to, not necessarily people asking the questions.
I just don't see it. I don't know.
That's fair. Before we do get to our guy Seth Kaiser in a few minutes, I did want to bring up the fact that we actually do see. We now know Garofalo from Good Morning Football NFL Network, James Garofalo, actually posted out that the Orlando Brown Jr. did sign an agent this week. It's the agency. The agency goes by Delta Sports Group, and his direct agent's name is Michael Portner.
I'm the owner.
Hey, well, way to go, Eddie. We don't know much about Portner, his direct agent, other than the fact that Orlando Brown Jr. is actually the first pro athlete he's ever represented. At least pro football player.
He
That's
wanted
what
someone
I do
who was
know.
completely detached from the league.
But what this does tell me is that the discussions to get Orlando Brown Jr. extended can now officially begin, because you're obviously not going to discuss contracts and talk shop with the Chiefs by yourself. That's not smart. No one ever advises that. Now, and as excited as I am and how excited this makes me, it's not ideal to have this dialogue begin just a month before the deadline of tag players to get a contract extension in writing. July 15th is the cutoff. So the Chiefs and Orlando Brown Jr. and his representation have a little over 4 weeks to really make this thing go. And that's just not something you usually like to see happen, and usually it takes a while for contracts to really come to fruition. So I would imagine it's gonna be really tricky for them to make this thing happen. I'm choosing optimism in this. I'm choosing to believe that because of the fact that I believe the Chiefs really want to keep Orlando Brown Jr. here for years to come. And as our guy Charles Goldman said just last week of Chiefs Wire, he loves Patrick Mahomes. Patrick Mahomes loves him, and that's the biggest key in all this, is that when you have a good working relationship with Patrick Mahomes and you're protecting him and Patrick Mahomes helps you get paid, because I would believe that he gets paid this money because he came to Kansas City and had a really good season with the Chiefs as opposed to staying with Baltimore and testing out his luck. Either he gets left tackle, right tackle. I think this marriage makes a ton of sense. I think that Orlando Brown Jr. showed he's a top 10 left tackle in this league last season, switching over from a run-heavy offense in Baltimore to a pass-heavy offense in Kansas City, and it seamlessly transitioned where he was, again, one of the best left tackles in football last season. I think that continues next season. I think he's worth every penny. I wanted to get your guys' quick thoughts on this as far as the agent getting signed. Do you guys think he's going to get this contract done before July 15th?
I don't think he's the best left tackle in the league.
I said top 10. I would say top 10.
Yeah, I mean, I'm still not fully sold on him, if I'm 100% honest. I still got to see more. I think he performed well last year with the spot being put in. I think he did well as the season went on for sure. I don't think he deserves top money. I don't. But I know you got to pay guys in this league, and I know the market is going up The cap is going to be going up as well. But I don't think he should be getting Trent Williams money by any means. I don't think he is deserving of those things. I think they get a deal done. I do think they get a deal done because I think the Chiefs have made it very clear that they want him here. Patrick Mahomes wants him here. It's important to have that relationship between your left tackle and your quarterback on and off the field. That chemistry has got to be, top notch. So it's important to have continuity at that position. You can't have a revolving door of left tackles. So as long as he remains healthy, I think he's a great option, and I think he's a great long-term option for the Chiefs. So all I can hope is to get a deal done, before the deadline, and we ain't got to worry about it and talk about it anymore. We have our guy. We don't have to have the top, 1 or 2 left tackles. And Patrick Mahomes is incredible enough to create things, obviously, but as long as he's protecting him and doing his job on a consistent level, that's all I ask for, at a high level as well. So I like Orlando Brown, but I mean, if the numbers aren't right and he wants something else, I'm okay with saying goodbye or just playing him under the tag and figuring something out later on and see how he plays out this year. I expect the Chiefs to make the right decision, though.
Talancey was better than Williams this past season.
Well, Williams was hurt, but yes.
Number 1. So
yeah.
People can.
Orlando Brown Jr. is number 1.
I got drug under the mud for that one, man. But my point stands.
Not the entire season, but at times.
He played more snaps, more games.
He was healthy.
Yeah, just as many penalties. That's what I'm saying. The availability is everything.
Yeah.
Trent Williams is clearly better than Orlando Brown.
That's who we wanted, and that's what we wanted. Yeah.
The Chiefs didn't get him, and then they initially got the trade.
I'm not paying a left tackle as much money as Trent Williams even got. So that's crazy.
I feel like it wouldn't shock me if they do have a contract in place within the next few weeks. I feel like they were close. They were close enough. Maybe there was just a little bit more details that Orlando Brown wanted or something like that, and he didn't know how to negotiate that stuff. So I feel like he got an agent to kind of finish the negotiation down. I mean, I'm sure they've had the
communication. Think it happens pretty quick?
Yeah, I think it happens within the next 2-3 weeks. I would say before the deadline, I think they'll have a contract set out, an extension and all that stuff. Because I feel like I said, I feel like they were close, and I think Orlando Brown wanted to add a few little more details to the contract, but didn't know how to.
And what we gave up to get him too, that has to weigh in.
Yeah. So I'm sure he felt like he didn't know how to get those or get certain things, and he didn't know how to ask for them. So I feel like him going with an agent kind of makes me think that it's going in the right direction. It's just the what is that, the fine print that they're working on. I think that's what they're working on right now, and I think that's what he got an agent for, to read the fine print, to work on the fine print. So I wouldn't be surprised or shocked if within the next week or so we hear something about it.
I'm very excited about this O-line though. I want him to get locked in. I want all these guys to be in sync, not only on the field but contractually and everything. So I know we got Joe Thuney making a handsome amount as well. So
I feel like he'll restructure next year.
Yeah, very well could, because he'll be 30 this next season.
Yeah, so
I will say, we'll get Seth in a second, but I will say this, that the initial market value right now for Orlando Brown Jr. is a 5-year, $116.5 million contract, which sits at about $23.3 million a year. I do have a question. Remind me,
it's a lot of money.
After we get done talking to this great guy that I have on the show now, remind me, Chuck, because I want to ask you guys a question with this scenario that we have in place.
All right.
In the meantime, he is the Chiefs analyst for the Athletic KC and the writer of the Chief in the North newsletter. He's also done lawyer work. He's a pastor. He's also a tired father of 5, and I think he's a husband, unless his wife changed her mind here. But nevertheless, we have him here to talk some stuff. Let's give it up for Mr. Seth Kaiser!
It's all downhill from here. There's no way to live up to that. So I'll just I'll tell you guys the same thing that I tell my wife on a daily basis. I'll do my best to rise to mediocre, and I'll do the best I can. How you doing, fellas?
We're good, brother. We're good. We're good to have you. It's good to have you here, man. It's been too long. I think it's been about a year, almost to the date. You were kind enough to join us last summer. And for some reason we have you at this time of the year, and I think the reason why, and it's subconscious in my opinion, we got to get some good thoughts to get us into the season, because we're still a little ways away and we need somebody to kind of help us rally here, because this is the tough time of year. But luckily, Seth, this time of year, we have a lot to talk about, which is why we're really glad we have you on today, man. But first and foremost, before we get to any Chiefs content, well, not necessarily. We're going to get to that. But I've seen you stay pretty busy all year round, man. You got some things going, like I said, at The Athletic, and the Chief of the North newsletter is still going strong. I just wanted to get caught up with you, man, because we haven't talked in a long time. How's everything going with both those projects?
It's going great. The newsletter, the Substack, it's kind of been interesting. Substack, I'm coming up on the 2-year anniversary today. Started in June of 2020. And Substack itself has grown in that time. And you're seeing a few more common things. Even in the sports world, Joe Posnanski has a Substack now. Matt Miller, obviously the KC Sports Network guys. You're seeing more and more of those, Ryan Tracy. I like to think of myself as a trendsetter. I'm not, but I like to think of myself as one. And so it's been cool to watching the growth of Substack. And with that, the site has grown beyond anything that I expected it to be. I kind of thought it would be like a fun side project. And obviously started, COVID stuff was happening. Things were in full swing. We didn't know if there would be an NFL season. We weren't sure. And so The Athletic was kind of leery. They were cutting back on how many articles per week. And this is my hobby too. I do this for fun. So I knew I'd be reviewing film. I knew I'd be writing stuff and charting stuff. And I figured I'd wanted to do something on my own for a long time. So I just kind of started it. I figured it'd be like a little hobby. It's now the main place. I still do the Times Ours podcast for The Athletic, and I still write for them every now and then. But most of my stuff is now in the Chief of the North newsletter, and it's been awesome. The support has been just crazy to me. And so that's going really well. I'm excited. I have one more rookie, Isaiah Pacheco. I'm done looking at his film. I got to write about him still because people demanded it. I didn't think they'd want it from a 7th-round pick, but they do. And so I'm going to do that. And then I get to move into the stuff that I really like doing, which is the off-season film review stuff. I really want to do at least 7 or 8 games of Trey Smith so we can get an idea for how he really performed on a, week-to-week basis. L'Jarius Sneed, I'm really interested in his second year. And of course, Jody Fortson, because I'm not going to quit on that now. I'm too deep, and I still think he can contribute. I believe every year it was starting, it was happening, and he got hurt. So I'm excited. This is one of my favorite times of the year, honestly, because it's the dead zone. And so I don't have to, review a new game or review a bunch of new free agent signings or review a bunch of draft picks. And I can actually do the things that I kind of like, that I feel differentiate what I do a little bit. I don't think anyone else is going to go back and review, 8 games of Trey Smith and chart them all to kind of figure out what happened on a snap-by-snap basis. So I love this time of year. I'm excited for it.
A fired up Seth in June is what I love. I'm happy for you, Seth. This offseason is going according to plan, and I think we're going to get the best content yet from Mr. Seth Keysor. I'm very excited about this because this benefits everybody. But speaking of something that doesn't benefit really anybody, let's just get it out of the way. We know all that we need to know about the Tyreek Hill podcast teaser. What he put out there. We broke this down at the beginning of our show. We also heard Andy Reid's reaction to this.
Yeah.
I want to get your thoughts on both sides of this spectrum here, because I think this is, I know people are trying to say this is a non-story, but to me, hearing Andy Reid's response to this, to me tells me this isn't a non-story, because we both know that Andy is so good with the media. We know he is so good and well-equipped to fuse anything he wants to fuse. And whenever there's a big, bad loss, he always puts it on him, so no one will come at him and criticize his team. They'll just look at what went wrong and things of that nature. But for some reason, he got an emotional response out of him because of this. And Tyreek doing this in itself, to me, does no favors to anybody, including him, because it looks like he took the legacy that he had in Kansas City and used it as a clickbait teaser. And that's just, to me, not something that's beneficial for anybody. Seth, I want to get your thoughts on both parts of what took place this week.
Sure. First and foremost, I just want to say that as someone that broke into this industry just as a fan doing blog stuff, and which is one of my favorite things to read. It's pretty much the only content I still consume, honestly, other than Nate. But Todd Lebo has been kinder to me than most. And I don't know anyone in the Kansas City media that has a negative thing to say about Todd. And I just wanted to throw that out there. He's a guy that I've consistently appreciated, who's been really, really kind to me at times when I had absolutely nothing to offer. Maybe at this point, when I go on 810, maybe people listen, maybe they don't. I have no idea. But back when they had absolutely no reason to be kind to me, they were. And that's something I would just want to say about Todd. In terms of the question, I mean, Andy Reid doesn't usually. Every now and then he'll get a little testy. I'll never forget when he got kind of testy with the late great Therese Paylor over a question about Eric Fisher. Every now and then, Reid will get a little bit testy when he feels like it's something that makes someone look bad for one reason or another, and that could be it. I also have a bit of a theory that I'm probably not going to go too far down a rabbit hole on, but I mean, it's pretty well known that there is some stuff that happened over the last few years in terms of stuff that got said, not by Todd, certainly, but that maybe Andy might have taken a little personally, and maybe Todd just caught a stray there. And that's just pure speculation on my part. There's a possibility for that too, or maybe he was just having a bad day. Those would be the three possibilities I would give to Andy's reaction there that I think are the most likely, where he was just like, "Oh, for the love of God," But like the shock jock thing, like that I felt like was kind of unfair, and I think that might have just been a situation where he kind of caught a stray with association, fair or not fair, because. The individual that it might have been a little more directed at in terms of the ire is someone who was very kind to me as well when I broke into the industry. So I'm trying to be kind of cautious with how I frame that, because I've had all these people, they've been very good to me and very, very kind to me. But I think that might have been part of it, just a little bit of a stray. And I don't know if that's really fair, but that's how I would view it. In terms of Hill, I saw it, it was clickbait. I thought it was silly. I don't really care that much. The players, they say all sorts of stuff. They're trying to build brands. They're trying to do whatever. They'll do the clickbaity thing, and then he'll say a bunch of really nice stuff about Kansas City again. I don't view that as anything that's too big a deal, but I tend to give all of this a massive shrug. It's all performance art. You know what I mean? It's all just a facade. And I think right now Tyreek Hill, if I could be wrong, I don't know the guy. If I were a guessing man, I would say that because of all the stuff surrounding him when he entered the league, and then all the stuff a couple of years ago, all the questions nationally, just a bunch of stuff, he never really got to act like a superstar, like nationally. Also, Kansas City's a small market, all that stuff. But, even as Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce, they were always just a little more in the limelight. Now, he got treated like a star, but like with being traded for a bigger haul than Devontae Adams, going to Miami, you're the talk of the league now. I think he's enjoying this new step as like Tyreek Hill, like NFL superstar, and just out there completely without any hesitation, without any of that. That would be my guess. He's a dude enjoying that. Is it something I would have done in an interview? No. But I also, I'm not on track to be a Hall of Famer, so I can't do things like that and get away with it.
I think you got some Hall of Fame Pulitzer Prize kind of thing going on.
Oh, yeah.
I think you got it, Seth. I think you got it in you. I think you could be the Tyreek Hill of writers.
Oh, that sounds exhausting.
But somebody that I think the Chiefs are planning to keep for a long period of time is Orlando Brown Jr. We actually got the news a couple days ago that he actually has officially signed an agent with the Delta Group, I think the Delta Sports Group, and Michael Portner is his direct agent. I haven't at least found a lot about Michael Portner. All I do know is this guy is fairly new to the game. In fact, I think, if I'm not mistaken, Orlando Brown Jr. is the first pro athlete he's either representing, or it's a first pro football player that he's representing.
Yeah.
Nevertheless, it's good to know that Orlando Brown has finally taken this approach, gone down this road, because this is the best way of getting these things done. Obviously, we know that.
Right.
But July 15th is going to be here quick, man, and we know that tagged players have to get their contracts signed before July 15th. What are your thoughts, man? Are you optimistic that we're going to see a contract in place with Orlando Brown Jr.? And if so, what do you think the figures will look like?
Sure. So I'll give you the optimistic side and the pessimistic side as I straddle this fence. The optimistic side, obviously he just retained an agent, but there's 3 reasons why the Chiefs probably, in my opinion, it won't take them long, or they already have sent an offer. They might have even given one to Orlando while he was looking for an agent and said what I would have done if I were them at least. And one never knows because no one likes to be the first one to make an offer, positional bargaining, blah, blah, blah. But they might have just said, this is the offer. When you hire a guy, show it to him and we'll talk. That, to me, is a good way to do business because then you can also show this to your agent while you shop for an agent, kind of get your feel for what you think of your agent. That's just how I think, but whatever. But here's why I think they could very easily formulate an offer. First, while it was years ago, they've got the foundation of a top level but not elite level type contract with the Eric Fisher deal. Because we forget that now, but Eric Fisher's contract when it came out blew a lot of people's minds, including mine, because it was upper tier money. Now, by the end of that contract, it was pretty decent money, and that's kind of how it goes at the NFL level. So they've got that framework in place. They also made a massive offer to Trent Williams just last offseason. So they had an entire formula in place, an entire contract ready, offered in place for this is what we would have paid Trent Williams in the 2021 offseason. Well, with the way the salary cap works and, numbers go up, that kind of stuff, you can kind of fiddle around with that contract and say, well, this is what we were willing to pay, Trent bleeping Williams, who is obviously in his own stratosphere as a left tackle, but it was a year ago. Well, here's what we're willing to pay Orlando Brown a year later. So you've got that. And then obviously with the franchise tag, that always works as kind of a goofy little starting point in terms of the money per year that you talk about. Not that, he's not going to sign. I think it's 16.6. He's not going to sign for 16.6 a year. He'd be crazy if he did, based on the numbers around the league. But I think that's a lot of reasons for optimism why they could get it done quickly in terms of getting an offer out there, because they've got all this framework in place. And that I think is the good side of it.
The Chiefs continue to play it ultra-conservative in their approach by adding veteran pieces to the roster, at edge rush in particular. I love the George Karlaftis pick. I really did. But, Seth, it's June, and the Chiefs' 2 primary edge rushers are rookie and Frank Clark. It's kind of scary. What can you theorize from the Chiefs' approach in improving their pass rush, and do you personally think it's going to work?
My fear is that they still think that they're going to get 2018 Frank Clark. That's my fear, is that they really still in their heart of hearts believe that he can be a foundational member of the pass rush. That's my fear. They've shown that they'll believe in guys whose tape they like from the past. And 2018 Clark is a foundational player. He just hasn't been that guy with any sort of consistency in Kansas City. That's my fear. My other fear, not fear necessarily, but what I think actually happened, I think they planned on extending Tyreek Hill, all the stuff we've heard about, the Adams deal happened and it kind of blew things up a little bit, et cetera, et cetera. I think they really thought they were going to get a deal done with Hill, which kind of kept them out of the top range of the edge market. And then by the time they got caught up, there weren't guys in the edge market that they really wanted to overspend on. And they just things just didn't quite work out. That wouldn't explain why they let Ingram, who was a pretty vital part last year. He was the second best pass rusher on the team last year. And when you're in a position, the way I frame this to people, because Melvin Ingram's a good but not great player. If it is devastating for your team to lose Melvin Ingram, that means you already had a big problem. Because Ingram's a player that any team would love to have, but it's not like he's going to change the trajectory the way Briscoe framed it. I like this. He's not going to change the trajectory of the Miami Dolphins season this year.
Right.
But he had some pretty trajectory-changing stuff with the Chiefs, and that's because the bar was so low, and that's not a pot shot to Mike Dana. I like Mike Dana. He's a guy that you can give 300 snaps a year to, and you're golden. Consistent, smart player, strong against the run, high-effort guy. But he's not a foundational guy. you have one foundational guy on that line, and that's no way to get a consistent pass rush. You cannot do it. That's the reason why the Rams went after Von Miller when they already had Aaron Donald and multiple other good pass rushers, because one pass rusher does not create a consistent pass rush in the NFL, no matter how good he is. And Chris Jones is awesome, but you can't consistently get to the quarterback with one guy, and sometimes even two. You need 2 stars. Really, if you want a consistently good pass rush, you need at least 2 stars, and then you need 1 or 2 decent to above average type guys, because that's how it works. Even the best pass rushers in the league win maybe like Aaron Donald wins like 25% of the time.
Right.
And just basic math tells you need multiple guys doing that. Plus, in today's league, guys like Herbert, Mahomes, all these guys move around. You got to crush the pocket. You've got to get from multiple directions. Otherwise, you have an AFC championship where Joe Burrow wriggles free from Chris Jones. And hey, should Jones have finished? Sure, a couple times. That would have been great. But Burrow can play. Sometimes guys just make plays, and Burrow can play. He's a slippery son of a gun. And then there's no one else there. Boy, would it have been nice had Frank Clark been able to provide a little complimentary pressure in those moments. Just one of those with someone, anyone, besides Ingram, who had a sack and did a few things, anyone else making a play maybe changes that game. And so the short answer is I'm freaked out. Karlaftis, I like his film. He was consistent. He can win in a lot of ways. Really technically proficient, strong hands, bunch of things I like about his film. But he's a rookie, and rookies are generally not consistent. So I'm freaked out by the defensive line. It's easily the thing I'm most freaked out by the team heading into the year.
Seth, you recently dropped an article that essentially breaks down Patrick Mahomes' unicorn contract, as you put it. How, although the numbers were initially monstrous, but is already a value for a quarterback at his magnitude, and how it will continue to be a value. If you could, because I don't want you to give it all away, but I want people to go and obviously read this article, but if you could just briefly explain that a little bit to our audience about how this contract is already working in the Chiefs' favor despite the numbers and how they look.
Right. So the first thing with that contract, it was a 10-year extension tacked on to 2 years that were already still remaining. So it's a 12-year deal, which is weird. And there's a reason why that becomes important. So the first thing it did the last 2 years, it kept the numbers low, gave them a huge advantage in terms of team building and that kind of stuff. So this year, obviously, the number kicks up. And the numbers are all, I'm going to be doing projecting here because I can't remember the exact numbers. They're all in the article if you want to look it up. They basically, he jumps up to, I think, second in the league in cap hit. And that's what matters is cap hit. And it matters in cap hit in terms of percentage of the cap and relative to other big contracts. Looking at the raw numbers doesn't do you as much good. So this year he jumps up to second in the league. The big money's finally kicking in. Oh no, the Chiefs will never sign a free agent again. It's going to be terrible. Except as soon as next year, he suddenly gets knocked down to, I think, third. Then the year after that, it's fourth. And then if you go down a couple years from now, or like 3 years from now, he ends up like fifth in the league in terms of cap hit, right? And so what I did is I looked at the top 8 cap hits for quarterbacks moving forward all the way to 2026. And we can go forward that far because Mahomes' deal is until 2032. And what makes it unique is you start to see his numbers are going to remain relatively steady around that 42 to 45 million average per season until all the way through it. And man, that sounded like a huge number a couple years ago. Until now, Deshaun Watson's getting 50 mil a year. Aaron Rodgers is going to be averaging out close to that. You got Russ Wilson's asking for that now. What ends up happening, just like everything else, salary cap keeps going up. We had the weird stuff happen with COVID. The salary caps, even despite losing essentially 2 seasons, really, of the type of growth they were supposed to have, the salary cap's grown by $90 million in the last decade and a year. It's going to keep going up. The Amazon streaming wars, all this stuff. The NFL's got, I think, like another 10 years of just because it's them and nothing else, right? From the streaming wars, they are it. They're going to get money from Amazon. They're going to get money from all sorts of people. I don't think DirecTV is going to hold on to that contract. Someone's going to outbid them, all that stuff. So the numbers keep going up while Mahomes is, because it's a really long contract, stays the same. And the thing I wanted to note is by the time you get to, I think it's 2025, I can't remember, I'd have to look at the numbers. The top 5, you've got like 3 guys that are making 50 mil already, whereas Mahomes is still just hanging out right here. And that's before you consider the fact that you've got other big contracts like Russ Wilson coming up. Kyler Murray is coming up. And then you get some of these rookies. I mean, Justin Herbert's going to get the bank. Joe Burrow's going to get the bank. Lamar Jackson's going to get the bank. All these guys. And with every one of those, it's going to keep going up, 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 up. And in the meantime, Mahomes' contract stays here. Now, eventually, they'll probably renegotiate some stuff. But that's what makes his contract so uniquely valuable for the Chiefs. That, and even as his contract, he's at market value right now. For an elite quarterback, he's actually a little below market value, just a tiny, tiny bit. That's 2 years later. Imagine another 2 years, it's going to be below market. Then he's going to reach a point to where he's not even, his pay will not even be the average of the top 8 to 10 quarterbacks. Maybe he tries to renegotiate at that point. I have no idea. I don't think he would have signed a deal that long if he wasn't going to follow through with at least half of it, I would say.
Right.
And the other thing I would just note is, in addition to that, the rolling guarantee mechanisms that they have allows them any 1 year, and they didn't do it this year. Everyone thought they would, and they didn't. Any 1 year, they can convert his roster bonus to a signing bonus and save themselves $25 million or roughly against the cap that year, and put it up against the cap for 5 years. So any 1 year, they say, we want to go all in on whatever position. Whatever guy is in free agency that we just love, whatever thing we think we need help with, they can do that at any given point. So it's an incredible contract. And I mean, I retweeted the article again today because of the news about Russ Wilson wanting $50 million a year. And every new contract that a good quarterback gets is going to make that contract better and better.
There always seems to be a breakout player for the Chiefs when it comes to rookie guys. McColl and Juan Thornhill had really good rookie seasons in 2019. L'Jarius Sneed and Willie Gay Jr. in 2020. And then obviously last season you had Creed Humphrey, Nick Bolton, and Trey Pancake Papa Smith in 2021. Some of them weren't expected to emerge that quickly or at all.
Right.
Yet they did. And as excited as I was that the Chiefs went defense in 7 of their 10 picks, I find myself more excited about the first 2 offensive players they took than Sky Moore and Darian Kennard. And in my personal opinion, Seth, I think Kennard is going to be a day one starter. And I think Sky is going to gain more and more playing time as the season progresses. There's just a ton of mouths to feed at that position. It's going to be more likely he's going to take some time for him to find his place in this offense. Who do you anticipate of this rookie class will be the breakout impact player?
Just of the offensive guys or all of them?
All of them.
It's really hard just because you can see a path to really extreme success for multiple guys that they took on defense. I think the guy that is going to pop the most will be Trent McDuffie, and that's simply because I think he's going to get a starting job right away. I think he's NFL ready. They asked him to do a lot of stuff in Washington's defense. And I think he's going to be able to hop right into Spags' defense and take on a ton of responsibilities and be a starting corner. Now there's going to be a few games that he's going to get worked over. That's pretty much every corner in the NFL, but especially rookies. It's going to happen. But I think he might be the guy that might be the most consistent contributor, even if cornerbacks don't really put up numbers. So I would anticipate him. And then I think there's a slight chance that Kennard is beloved by midseason. I agree with you. I think he's got a chance to start. Lucas Niang, I don't think is going to be healthy when the year starts. And I like Andrew Wiley, actually. Every team needs an Andrew Wiley. You need a guy who can come in and start, and you're fine. At multiple positions. He's kind of underrated, honestly. But I think Kennard has a higher ceiling as right tackle. And when you watch that Kentucky line, they were really well coached. I mean, they were an awesome line. But the thing to watch with him that really sold me on him was what was really his worst game from last season against Georgia, because every offensive lineman's worst game was against Georgia because they had a bunch of freaks all over the place, and that scheme is insane. Like I was watching that, I kept having to text people like, "What are they doing? I don't understand this." But Kennard belonged out there with them, and you could see it even as the rest of his offense didn't do amazing because Georgia's defense was insane. You saw he belonged out there. These guys are all future pros, and not just future pros, but most of them are future, third-round picks or higher. And that's a huge thing. We've seen him play against future pros, and he held his own. And I think he's a good fit next to Trey Smith. So I think he could be kind of a beloved guy too. I agree with you. I think Sky Moore barring him being unbelievable, and there's a small chance that his college film's impressive, he's going to have growing pains. Almost every rookie does in Andy Reid's offense.
Yeah. Well, speaking of a guy that's getting a lot of hype in OTAs is Mr. Justin Ross. Now, there's a lot of opinions out there. We just had our guy from Chiefs Wire, Charles Goldman, on last week, and I was asking him about Justin Ross, and obviously the big one-handed catch was really cool to see, and the Chiefs are hyping it up on their social media. I love it. I think that's awesome to see. This guy's battled back from injuries, and something that Charles had stated was that if he wasn't well-equipped enough athletically and health-wise, the Chiefs wouldn't have him out there doing what they're doing with him. Yep. I think there was only like 5 or 6 teams I think that even cleared him physically. So the Chiefs are one of them. They believe in what he is. They believe in what he can be. And according to Charles Goldman, when he made the catch, he just kind of ran back to the huddle and acted like it wasn't a big deal. He didn't hype it. He didn't do anything else. It just seems like it's another day at the office for Justin Ross because he's got insane talent. But Seth, from your viewpoint of somebody that studies film more than most, are you expecting anything of true value from Justin Ross, or is this just one of those really cool, uplifting offseason stories that we see from time to time, or is this guy going to become something?
I'm not expecting it. I think there's legitimate reasons to hope for it, which is unusual for an undrafted rookie free agent. Usually, I mean, and look, anyone can hit. Anyone that makes the NFL, they've got a skill set or a talent that could pop. And you just never know. And plus, you never know how things will look from college to the pros. That's an example of this. Nick Bolton looks the same speed as a pro as he looked in college. That's weird. You're not supposed to, everyone, if you've got, like Clyde Edwards-Helaire, he wasn't a fast running back in college, and you can see that not having, I think Clyde's a decent running back, but you can see not having quite that extra gear, that initial burst. It hurts him more in the pros because everyone's a freak in the pros. Everyone's so fast, except Nick Bolton, apparently, who just is the same speed no matter what, which is weird, and that's why I think he had a better rookie season than I expected from him, and I'm generally pretty optimistic. So the reason I bring him up is Justin Ross has a unique skill set. If you were going to compare his skill set in a ceiling type thing to another rookie, it'd be like a Drake London type skill set, right? See ball, get ball, huge wingspan, really strong hands, willing to go up and get it, high points the ball, fights for it, doesn't mind physicality. All those things are good. At the same time, similar to Drake London, only I think more so, he's not particularly quick. And I'm not just talking about his 2021 film here. And one thing that I think differentiates me, maybe, I could be wrong, that I've had a lot of people, oh, no, you just got to watch the 2019 film, watch the 2018 film. I don't think he looked that different as a player. I think he had a way better quarterback throwing him the ball. Someone that could just, hey, see ball, get ball, I'm going to put it where you need it. Now, fortunately, that's who he's playing with in the NFL, which is great. But I didn't see this massive difference in his ability to stop, start, change direction, quickness, agility. That was never him. And so I don't know what that does to him with the ceiling as a player, because you can succeed at the NFL level without top-notch quickness if you run good routes, great ball skills, all those things, but you've narrowed your road to success, right? You have to be elite at certain things in order to get away with not being high level at other things. So I'm not expecting it from him because of that. I thought his tape was good, but not incredible. I just wasn't as blown away, including with this 2019 tape. But I do think he's got a path to success, and he's unique among Chiefs wide receivers. Because even though Valdez-Scantling and Juju, they've got more size than the Chiefs have had in recent years, they're still not contested ball type guys. At least they haven't been throughout their careers. And so he's more of what we all hoped for when Josh Gordon joined and that kind of stuff. He has that skill set. So I'm not expecting it based on his tape in college. I hope that I am so wrong and he just blows the doors off of everything, because he's got a really cool skill set that in the current NFL, we see Jamar Chase, who is way more explosive. So this isn't a player-for-player comparison. But Jamar Chase was able to enter the league and succeed right away as a ball skills dominant catch point guy. And then he's obviously also super explosive after the catch. But the NFL, the way they referee these games, if you can be a physically dominant catch point guy, it's hard for corners to do much about that at this point because you're allowed to be more physical than they are and you're bigger, stronger. That's one reason I fell in love with Drake London during the draft. And I think Justin Ross does have a very high skill set in those areas. So I'm hopeful. I think he's one we're going to know a lot more about in preseason. That's when you can really separate these guys in one-on-one matchups and see how they can win.
I like that. Final question for you here, Seth, and man, we do really appreciate your time because we know you're the only guy on this planet that can find 30 hours in a 24-hour day. You always got something going on, man, but we appreciate your time being here with us today. But my final question is the question I've been asking everybody that's been joining us over the last 6, 7, maybe even longer than that episodes. When it comes to the AFC landscape, when it comes to how things are looking, we know that the Chargers and the Broncos and the Raiders and the Bills and all these other teams that are trying to vie for that top spot in the AFC that's been held in Kansas City for the last 4+ years, they've all made big moves. They've went out and signed and they've spent a lot of money and they've gotten these veterans and they've stacked up, they've stockpiled. How do you see it, man? I mean, do you really believe? Because I know, again, the names have been moved around. The guys have been getting paid. These teams are adding guys. But I'm not convinced yet that these teams have done enough to surpass the Chiefs or to take down the Chiefs because the Chiefs still have the wild card here, man. They still have the best head coach quarterback due in the league, but it doesn't end there. In my opinion, they got the 3 best head coaches in the AFC West on their staff. I think Eric Bieniemy would be a better head coach than Josh McDaniels, than Brandon Staley. Now, Brandon Staley may show us differently this year, but I'm not convinced about the guy. Not even mention Nathaniel Hackett. Didn't even call plays in Green Bay. So I think the Chiefs have a significant advantage at coaching staff. I think they have a significant advantage at quarterback, even with Herbert and Wilson and Derek Carr included. He's still got the upper hand. I mean, I remember 2 years ago, right around Christmas time, you broke the chart down about how Patrick is the greatest quarterback when it comes to tough spots over Brady, over Rodgers, over Peyton Manning, any of those guys. So they have significant advantages, man. And I'm sorry, I didn't hear you. What'd you say?
I said still true, by the way.
Thank you. Still true. It's still relevant to this day, almost 2 years later.
A lot of people will look at, he played badly in the second half against the Bengals. Everyone knows it. Everyone saw it. It's still everyone still kind of seems to completely forget that he did hit Hill down the field in overtime, and Hill let that ball get knocked out. That was catchable, and he didn't high point it at the highest point. But again, Hill's a great player. These things happen, but people seem to be forgetting that because had he caught that whole thing goes very differently. But because he played a bad half, people now, oh no, none of it's true. It's like, no, you've got a massive sample size to where even last year he was still just, so far and away better than anyone else.
Seth,
I apologize.
Dude, no, you're fine. But to that point, before I finish my question here, to your point, what you just said, the previous 10 quarters in the playoffs, Patrick Mahomes had more touchdowns in that stretch than Tom Brady has ever had in a single postseason. So to even the highest degree, even with that second half blunder, Patrick was playing at an historic level, and it's just really sad to see that's the way it ended. But just to come full circle on my question here, when it comes to the AFC landscape and everyone's talking about, the Chiefs have been passed. We even had guys like Adam Shine from the NFL Network ranking the Chiefs 9th overall. Now, that can just be clickbait. Tyreek Hill knows that really well. But to you, just looking at it as close as we're getting to the season, less than 100 games or 100 days away, how do you see the AFC shaking down right now, man? Are the Chiefs still at the top, or you got some questions here, man?
There are questions, particularly on the defensive side of the ball. That said, we now have a big enough sample size of what the current NFL looks like to know that offense is more important than defense. In terms of consistency, in terms of winning games, statistically speaking, it has been for, I think it's over 5 years now. That's what's going to generally be the thing that helps you win the most games. Now, individual matchups, anything can happen, but overall, we know that. And the Chiefs' offense, they lose Tyreek Hill. That's a huge deal. I think when you're going to lose a future Hall of Famer, which I think Hill is, first ballot if he keeps doing what he's doing, how you replace that guy is always going to be a question mark. I do think they've done about as well as you can, other than, had they gone out and gotten Devontae Adams or whatever, right? Player for player, which I think Adams is pretty much it if you were going to do it for Hill. I think what they've done by grabbing a above average veterans like Valdez-Scantling and Juju Smith-Schuster, and hoping, okay, we're going to plug in, okay, he's a deep threat, he's an intermediate shallow guy. We'll plug those two guys in, and let's grab a really talented rookie. You know, those things, the idea is you don't take a step back. If they can do that, and who knows, I kind of believe in them. It's going to be a really interesting litmus test on the importance of wide receiver versus the importance of everything else. On defense, they've got a lot of question marks. And so what I think you'll notice is when I'm talking about how the AFC shakes up this year, I'm talking about the Chiefs. I'm not talking about the other teams, because with the other teams, it doesn't really matter. It genuinely doesn't. The Bills are probably on paper about as talented a team as you'd see. And, man, they gave the Chiefs everything they could handle in that divisional round game, which I know for people the next week was tough, but really go back and rewatch that game. That game was awesome. Even, like, objectively now that the sting has faded a little from the next week, I rewatched the second half. I mean, those guys were just fire-breathing dragons, although I would note that Josh Allen's throws were easier, but that's neither here nor there.
Right.
It really doesn't matter that much what any one team does other than the Chiefs. And this was true last year too, pretty much every game they lost, not all of them, but most of them, it was largely self-inflicted stuff. When they play their best game, they win. And that's consistently true throughout the Mahomes era. And so the question for them this year will be about that pass rush, about that defense, and whether or not we're going to end up with a step backward. So that's going to really be the determining factor. I don't see them being so out of it because, like you said, they do still have advantages in the most important areas. And this is going to be because now they've rebuilt the defense twice now in the Steve Spagnuolo era, right? You had the first time after 2018 when he came in new. They completely rebuilt the defense. This is the second time you've rebuilt the defense in the Patrick Mahomes era. The first time, I would say they did so with some success. Obviously, they won a Super Bowl because the defense no longer sucked, and that was really important in the Super Bowl because otherwise the Niners would have been up by like 27, and it wouldn't have mattered what they did in the fourth quarter. So they had some success. Now you're 3 years later, right? And you've gone through, Clark didn't quite pan out the way anyone was hoping, and a few other things have changed. If this revamping of the defense is remotely as successful in terms of a transition as the first one was, except this time it's a youth movement instead of a bunch of veterans, I think the road still goes through Arrowhead to the Super Bowl. And I think deep down, most people know that. And that's why the Chiefs are the new Patriots kind of thing. You know what I mean? They haven't won as many Super Bowls, but they are the team that every year, and that's boring, right? No one wants to say that. So now you want to say someone else. You want to say, well, I think the favorite ought to be the Bengals because that's fun to talk about the new team. So I think that's part of why you're seeing a lot of those stories.
Well, as I always say, it's a little play on the Green Day song, Wake Me Up When September Begins, man, because I'm sick of this ridiculousness, man, that we got people out here, this rhetoric that they're putting out there, man. This offseason stuff's wild, man, but that's why we have people like Seth Kaiser on our show, because he brings it real. He gives us some of that realness, It may not be what I want to hear or what we want to hear, but he's giving us the truth. And guys, I'm telling you, I'm not saying this because he's on here, but, it doesn't hurt when he is on here to say it. He's one of the greatest when it comes to film study and breakdown, things of that nature, so you guys need to be following him. Seth, before I give you the outro here, man, if there's anything else you want to add, plug anything, go have it, man, and do what you got to do. Thank you guys for having me on. I mean, if anyone wants to subscribe, look up the Chief of the North newsletter. Make sure you find the coupon for it, though. It's $12 a year. Substack forces me to do 30 a year, and so I've just the day I opened the site, I just opened up a coupon link, and I've just kept it open the entire time. I never want money to be a reason someone can't subscribe. But obviously, if I'm going to justify spending, 15, 20 hours a week on this stuff with my wife, I have to charge something for it or start doing clickbait and ads. And I'm not going to do clickbait and ads. So, but if anyone wants to subscribe, I mean, the support, honestly, I try to say at any chance someone gives me a chance to get it. The support from Chiefs Kingdom has been unbelievable. And I can't believe that I get to do this as a job. It's awesome. And I really appreciate you guys having me on. It has been a while. And I'm sorry that my schedule always keeps me. I feel like I spend half my time doing this,
and I'll try to be a little bit better. I won't be a stranger for quite so long.
You have nothing to apologize about, man. We know, like I said, you're the only dude I know that can find 5-6 more hours in a 24-hour day that's not even there, man. I'm telling you, you are what we look forward to every single time, man. You're awesome. You have great content. You're a great follow. You do incredible work. Don't stop doing that. Don't apologize for anything. And we know that when you get an opportunity, you'll be back with us. But in the meantime, guys, go follow our guy Seth Kaiser. Like you said, the Athletic KC. He is the writer of the Chief in the North newsletter, and you can follow him on Twitter at Real MN Chiefs fan. It's a great follow. It's a guy that you definitely want to give you guys attention to. Seth, thank you so much, my brother.
Hey, thanks for having me, guys. Take care.
Thanks, too, man. Brother. You too. That's our guy Seth Kaiser. Really appreciate it, man. I swear, dude. These last two guests have been so informed and so informative as far as what the questions and concerns that we as Chiefs fans have. It's always good to, like, I don't want to knock anybody here, you know, when it comes to, like, having former players. I love having the guys that we know that are former players on the show because they give us insight on things that no one else can. They tell you about the mood, they tell you about the momentum, they tell you about the experience, the hard work, and the effort you have to put in just getting to the game. But listening to these guys that break down film on a consistent and constant basis, it always gets me giddy, man. Because when they study film like they do, and they still tell you things like he said about it doesn't matter what the rest of the AFC is doing. When they say things like that, when they say, "Oh, it doesn't matter what the rest of the AFC is doing. If the Chiefs play their best, they're the best." That excites me because these are the guys that know it outside of former players better than anybody.
This is what we preach all the time too. You know, we feel the same way. So it is nice to be reassured and, you know, have the other ones that we feel are above us in a tier, what they do, saying the same thing.
What do you guys think? I ask that question to every guest because I want to get the viewpoint from that particular person. Every guest we obviously have, I respect their opinion, but you know that there are people that are.
But there's right and there's wrong.
People like Seth. This is literally his job.
Yeah,
is to study film and to talk and give break of the takeaways, tell you guys what he's seeing from his viewpoint. Jason Dunn, our beloved friend from Chief Concerns, he gives us his opinion on this as a former player that played in the league for over 10 years.
Yeah,
and these guys are saying the same thing. The Chiefs do what they do. They continue down the path they've been down for the last 4 or 5 years. They're going to be back to where we know them to be, back into prominence. And so that, yes, Trevor, like you said, that alleviates any stress. Because trust me, man, I'm not just doing this for the audience. No offense to everybody that listens and watches. I'm doing this for us too, man. I want to know some of this stuff for myself because I'm a fan and I dedicate hours upon hours of each and every day of my life to this team and to give content. I want to make sure I know what the hell I'm talking about, which is why we have people like our guy Seth Kaiser on the show. Man, I always love when he gets to come on, man. It's not often. He's a busy-ass dude, man. This guy's got a lot going on. Go read his bio on Twitter, and you'll see. You have to take like 3 breaths to read everything that this man does in his life. But we appreciate just a small portion of his life as he went on here and jumped the show. I actually, I wanted to get back to this question before we get to the Eddie Hour. I had this question for you guys. You don't have to go dive deep into it or anything like that. I just want some quick responses. So I told you guys Orlando Brown Jr.'s current market sit at 5 years, $116 and some change $1 million for the full deal, which comes down to about $23.3 million. Trevor, you mentioned something I found interesting. You said that you don't believe he's worth top dollar. Here's a scenario for you, though. It's a very simple one. And I have a reason why I'm asking because I have a response to it. If you had to play these scenarios out, which one would you choose? You pay Orlando Brown Jr. that 5 years, $23 million a year, which is top dollar, which would make him the number 1 paid tackle in the entire league, and you deal with that, or you don't pay him, keep him on the tag, and then trade him after the season and hope for the best. Which one would you prefer?
We wouldn't have to trade him at the end of the season.
I know, but I'm saying that the money's only going to go up from here on. It's not like tackles are going to go from a market demand of 23 to 17.
For me, I've seen one season. You know what I mean? We've seen one season at that position.
Yeah.
And he played well. Don't get me wrong, he played well. It was basically a contract year for him. He's basically, he's trying to, and I know we're going to pay him. My opinion doesn't necessarily even matter. Because what we gave up for
bullshit, it matters here, motherfucker.
Well, why are you talking?
Because of what I'm saying as far as what actually happens in reality.
Right, okay.
Not necessarily
I'm just asking, like, which one you'd prefer.
Yeah. I mean, I'd rather have him here than not. Obviously, so if we pay him, I get it. I'm very cautious about. That's a very integral position in this team. And if we pay him and it doesn't pan out and we're stuck on the books with him and he becomes like an injury-prone guy, I know this can happen to anyone. My main thing is I like to see sample size before I commit to something. Obviously, if he's getting backed by Patrick Mahomes, I'm sold, right? But I still, just from what we saw hiccups here and there throughout the season. He obviously progressed as the season went on and got better and better and better, which is promising because that only can lead into this next season.
Yeah.
So as far as sample size goes, I'm expecting him to continue to get better and better, progress and become better at that position. And it is his natural position. And we did want him. Obviously, when we brought him over, we wanted him. We were all pushing for him. Outside of him and Trent Williams, those were the two guys we really, really wanted, and we were willing to pay Trent Williams a handsome amount, as Seth alluded to. It's just, for me, it's just, if we're going to pay this guy big money, man, he better. I get nervous about paying guys that haven't given me much of a sample size. Similar to Frank Clark. He came in, we gave him a big fat contract. He played well that year, but after that money really started kicking in, we haven't seen Frank Clark be Frank Clark that we knew, and statistically and and visually everything.
Yeah.
That's just what makes me nervous about paying a guy like that much when he's only really been here a year, played solid his first year, but is he deserving of that big money? I guess it doesn't necessarily matter if he's deserving of it, but we're paying him what he's going to do, right? Not for what he's done. That's how you should do it. It's not like I don't like him. I do. I love Orlando Brown, and we were stoked on life when that actually came for what, you know what I mean?
We got the news. Eddie and I were right next to each other when the news broke.
Yeah,
we
so we didn't even think it was really going to happen.
Yeah.
But when it happened, we're like, oh shit! And then, it wasn't even like that. We did give up a handsome amount of things to acquire him, but it wasn't as much as we thought it could have been.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Or that was even the Ravens would even agree to that deal, and it happened. So I'm happy. I'm happy to have him here. I have no problem with us giving him that money unless I'm just thinking like future tense. If something were to go down, and I get nervous about these big contracts. You know what I mean? And that's a very important position. But if he's backed by Patrick Mahomes, Andy Reid, and Brett Veach, and everybody believes in him, I'm on board. My only thing is I give it a little bit of pause. I'm a little bit of nervous about that. You know, we'll see. Hopefully, he just continues to grow and get better at that position. That's my main thing.
I mean, the biggest question we always had here, and I believe you asked it, was who would you rather pay, Tyreek or Orlando Brown Jr.? Well, can no longer pay Tyreek.
Yeah.
So
that leaves one person.
It would have been Tyreek to me, but yeah.
Yeah, same for me. But now that Tyreek is gone and out of the picture, now you have Orlando Brown, so you can use Tyreek's quote-unquote money that he was going to get and get Orlando Brown, and it still won't affect you much because you already are anticipating to pay Tyreek Hill and paying Orlando Brown on top of that. So, yeah, this should only help facilitate the Chiefs not having to worry about paying top dollar for a left tackle who's going to be helping Patrick Mahomes' blind side. Obviously, he started the year off a little bit shaky, but as the season progressed, he became a dominant left tackle. So, yeah, I mean, I wouldn't be mad or I wouldn't be surprised if the Chiefs paid top dollar for him. Whatever makes him stay here, let's do it.
Yeah, that's where I stand on
What's our other option?
Yeah, because at this point, I heard some ridiculousness yesterday on radio. I'm not even gonna give the guy clout because it's such a bad take. He was basically saying he wants to see the Chiefs trade. If he was in his scenario, he'd trade Orlando Brown Jr. and then play Joe Thuney at left tackle. It's such a bad take because if Joe Thuney didn't play in that Bengals game when Niang and Orlando Brown got hurt,
played well, yeah.
No one would be saying this.
Yeah.
It's only because we saw him play for 2-3 quarters that, oh my God, he can play left tackle. That's not reality, man. There's a reason why this guy's been a center and guard his whole career. That's just what he is. But to that point about Joe Thuney, to your point, Trevor, about how you said that, we need a little bit more of a sample size from Orlando Brown before you feel more comfortable paying him. But even to that degree, we have more knowledge of what Orlando Brown Jr. is in this offense than what we obviously knew of Joe Thuney to be in this offense before they paid him historic money for a guard. So my point in all this is that was a big risk. Because I remember people were criticizing the Chiefs paying $70 million to Joe Thuney as a left guard. Because new guards weren't making that kind of money until that contract. And people were like, man, they overspent. But then you saw what Joe Thuney could do and how great he was in this offense day one. So to defend Orlando Brown a little bit, we have a full season of study on him. He played 16 regular season games and 3 postseason games, almost 20 games of sample, and he did progress. He struggled out the gate.
Yeah.
Myles Garrett was owning his ass in week 1. I was there at Arrowhead. I saw it.
It's
Myles Garrett, though, and it was his first freaking game in this offense. And I cannot stress enough how different the Ravens and Chiefs offenses are. They are substantially different. They could not be more opposite. So that's the point I'm trying to give Orlando. I think this season, I don't try to make predictions yet, guys. I think he's going to be an All-Pro this season. I really do.
I hope so, man.
He has the talent and the capabilities
Especially
to
if
do
he's gonna be
so.
paid like one.
And I think the Chiefs know that. I think they know it's in him, and they priced him by tagging him the way they did.
We wouldn't have gave up what we gave up for him.
I think Seth's right. I think what Seth Kaiser said was about Orlando Brown and the Chiefs already having contractual talks, and said, "Hey, here's an offer. Go hire your agent you're comfortable with, and then you guys discuss and come back to us." I think that's what Eddie said too, so I'll credit you as well. I think that's what happened. I think that the Chiefs are like, look, we're going to pay you X amount of dollars over the X amount of years.
Yeah.
I think it's going to be very similar to what you see in the market value on Spot Rack. I highly recommend you guys check that out if you guys want to see it for yourselves, but it's at 5 years, 116.5, $23 million a year. I think that's what the Chiefs are going to offer him. I do think it happens before July 15th. Is it going to be tough? Are they going to have to really jam this one in to make it work? Yes, because like I said, they only have 4 weeks to really make this thing official, and it's going to take some time. You have to do a lot of meetups, a lot of negotiations, things of that nature, because signing bonuses, roster bonuses, incentives, all these other things, making weight, all that stuff. That's all going to play into it, and you got to really figure these out. I hope they get it done, man, because what I would hate to see is Orlando having to go into this year without a contract done, because for some guys, I think it actually puts them at ease and they can focus just on football, whereas some guys that are still trying to prove themselves in this league, it's good to have them on these one-year deals to really give them that amplified, prove it to himself and to the team to get that next paycheck. We know Orlando Brown Jr., no matter what happens with this contract or not happens with this contract, someone's going to start him in the league. If the Chiefs were to just let him go, he's signed the next day or that day because of his value. We know what he is in this league. He's a very good left tackle in general. So he's going to get paid. The Chiefs are going to be the ones to pay him because, like you said, Trevor, of what they gave up to get him. We saw the same thing with Frank Clark and how he's still on this damn roster as a pivotal piece, as bad as he's been over the last couple of seasons, because of what? We know the Chiefs gave up a lot to get him initially.
We just need
That's
continuity. Continuity is the key to a great offensive line. You need continuity and consistency.
Year 2, baby.
So I mean, all I can hope is that only thing I was saying, I was just giving it pause. Hopefully we make the right decision. But I mean, I have nothing but trust in Veach and Andy Reid and what they want to put on the field to protect their most valuable asset, and I think that's what they're planning on doing. I'm pretty sure he's going to get signed, and he'll be here for at least the next 5-6 years.
All right, it is time for the Eddie Hour. Let's get some thought-provoking questions from our guy Eddie. What is in the Eddie Hour this week, my man?
Oh shit! Let me open it real quick.
Oh shit!
Hold on.
So right, question, I can't find him.
First question, man. We all saw, what was it, Thursday night? We all saw that Game 1. Everybody was excited. I want to get your thoughts and reactions just to Game 1. What can we expect from this series? Obviously, Game 2 is tomorrow. Is this series living up to what people thought it could be? What are we expecting? And reactions to the game?
Well, I don't think it's living up to what people were expecting it to be, other than me and Trevor, because very few people picked the Celtics in the series for whatever reason. I'm surprised. I was surprised how the game played out as far as the way the Celtics won, but I picked the Celtics to win this series in 6, which means that unless I was nuts, I had them winning one of the first 2 games. I had them winning Game 1 for a multitude of reasons. One, the Warriors had an entire week off, and for a veteran team like they are, that sometimes can be, you can come out with a little bit of rust. They came out with energy. They played really well. Steph Curry had an historic first quarter, and the Celtics withstood it. They were only down 4 points going into the second quarter. And why I said I was a little thrown off is because of the fact that the Warriors went on several runs during this game. They went up double digits, I think, 3 different times.
Numerous times.
Yeah, and going into the fourth quarter, they had a 12-point lead at home.
They even had Andre Iguodala coming in and contributing to those leads.
And I want to talk about that in a second, because I thought that was a really bad decision by Steve Kerr. But here's the thing I have about this is why I picked the Celtics to win this series. This team refuses to die. And they have a path unlike few have ever had. Think about it. The first round, you face 2 future Hall of Famers in Kyrie and KD. Whether those guys had problems this year or not, people were picking them to win that series. People were picking the Nets to still win the finals. And they swept those motherfuckers. Then they go and face the defending world champions, Giannis and the Bucks, and beat them almost soundly. I know there was a 7-game series or whatever, but you could tell the Celtics were the better teams, and they capitalized on Chris Middleton being injured.
Yep.
I do believe, in all fairness, had Chris Middleton been healthy, I think the Bucks probably win that series. But because he wasn't, the Celtics rose to the challenge. They were not intimidated by the champions, the team that's riding high on everybody else. They beat them. And so, and then obviously against the Heat, you saw them go into Miami after choking away at Game 5 or Game 6 at home. You're like, oh shit, dude. Game 7 in Miami, this is Eric Spoelstra. All these prolific athletes, these guys that have been in this for the last few years.
Supposed to lose that game.
They go in there and beat them.
Yep.
And they beat it in dramatic fashion. They were down double digits going to the fourth quarter in that game too.
Yeah.
And so you fast forward to game 1 against Steph and the team that's been in 6 of the last 8 finals. All healthy, all ready to go. Down 12. They go on a 9-0 run and then end this game on a 48-16 run. Unbelievable.
40 points
This is
in
the
the
team
fourth.
that's going to win the finals for that very reason. They're younger, more physical, bigger, stronger, and they have a bet. No offense to the Warriors. This team deserves to be where they're at. This Warriors team deserves to be in the finals. But this Celtics team is more deserving of this championship than the Warriors are because of that very run right there at the very end. And you have guys like Al Horford, 36 years old, at the tail end of his career. The Thunder just kind of threw him into that trade for the Kemba Walker thing, which, by the way, is one of the greatest moves in the history of the Celtics. That's saying a lot as the most historic franchise in the NBA. They go and get him in that trade.
Yep.
They automatically become one of the greatest defenses to ever be. Literally, off numbers. One of the greatest defenses that have ever been assembled. All 5 of their starters got at least 1 vote for Defensive Player of the Year. That has never happened before.
And they're all young.
And they're all young. Marcus Smart's one of their oldest players at 28, and obviously Al Horford's 36. But Al Horford has more games this postseason with 3+ three-pointers made 7 than Jordan Poole, who has 5. This team refuses to die. They make the big plays on both sides of the ball. It doesn't shock me they won Game 1, and it will not shock me they win this series in 5 or 6 games.
Yeah, I never picked outside of the Nets series, which I was completely wrong against. I had the Nets winning that series just because I thought the KD and Kyrie talent would have been too much, but I was dead wrong. But outside of that, I've never picked against this Celtics team. I shouldn't have went against them in that first series, but it is what it is. This is a team that just went on a Game 7 absolute battle against the Heat to put them away. A very motivated Heat team too, with all that shit talk that Draymond Green was giving them. Every bit of bulletin material you had, that Heat team had, and they were obviously a talented and well defensive team as well. They went into a Miami Heat tough environment, Game 7, pulled that out, and then immediately went to Golden State and won in Golden State against arguably one of the greatest teams ever assembled. This team is supposed to be here. That's not just something you do. You don't go win 2 major road games, a Game 1 in Golden State in the finals, and then a Game 7 previously before that. In Miami, too tough, and one of the toughest environments you can play basketball in. This team is resilient. This team is young. This team is longer. This team is taller. This team is faster. This team is better defensively. And Jason Tatum didn't do shit, and they still won. Outside of the 13 assists that Jason Tatum provided, which was very obviously good for him as far as getting other guys involved. Arguably had his worst game this postseason, and they still won by double digits. And they absolutely dominated in the closing minutes of that game. And you had Draymond coming out, oh, yeah, we dominated most of the game. We'll be all right. Talking about, I think, in the third quarter, he's talking about, oh, this game's over, blah, blah, blah. And, it doesn't matter. I mean, this team is so resilient is the word that comes to my mind when I watch this team. The leadership, shout out to Coach. I mean, that team is so well coached. Udoka, man, is coaching his ass off. This is his first year. And granted, I know this roster is very talented, but there was a change. And no offense to Brad Stevens. He's still very much involved with this team. He's head of operations or whatever he's doing exactly. Still plays his part. But Udoka's brought a different vibe to this team, a different energy.
Yep.
And these guys are playing for him, and you can see it. The way he has these guys really out there doing their thing and utilizing the characteristics and the personality of each individual player. Marcus Smart's become a better player this season. He's shooting his ass off. Arguably the best defender on the perimeter, arguably one of the best one-on-one defenders, him and Draymond Green. It's a fun matchup. I love this. This past game was obviously a game of runs. Both teams will go on runs. No lead is safe against this Celtics team. I was saying that the whole time watching this past game. The Warriors were going on the run. Steph had that record-setting first quarter. Hit 6 or 7 threes in that first quarter. It was just one of those games like, shit, if this is how it's going to be, a lot of teams would lay down on that when Steph's hot like that or when Klay's hot like that. You never know, man. They can literally just rip your soul out of your ass. But the Celtics didn't let them do that, man. Their rotation is so tight. They have those guys that just rotate in and out. Marcus Smart, White's been balling out. When White's balling out, they'll leave him out there, let him do his thing, and then bring fresh Marcus Smart back in that position. He can guard damn near anyone on the floor. Their rotation is just so it's fluid, right? So And then the youth is on their side, man. They're out there. They ran them out of the gym that fourth quarter. Absolutely ran that Warriors team out of the court on that fourth quarter. So Steph Curry's got to put together for 4 quarters, though. You know, he started the game off hot, but Steph fizzled out, and he's known to do that. Steph's done that in a lot of big games. We've seen it in the other finals before, where KD had to be the guy. Obviously, having that kind of a sidekick was a big deal for anybody. But yeah, man, I like this Celtics team. That's why I picked them in 6. And that's really honestly how I expect this to go through. I think that the Warriors will get a couple just because they're obviously a great team. They're here for a reason as well. And they've been here and they've done it. But I think this Celtics team is a freight train, similar to, they're not the same type of team, but similar to that Mavericks team when they beat the Heat. They just were not going to be stopped. Yep. Dirk was not going to be stopped. They refused to lose. That team was full of veterans and a well-coached team and a leader in Dirk Nowitzki just refused to lose. And I think this team as a core, these guys have fallen short too many times, and they've underachieved, honestly, with the talent that they have. And I just think this is the Celtics' time, and I don't think they're going to be stopped.
Ooh, so number 18 coming, huh?
Huh?
Number 18 is coming.
Yeah. That tie with the Lakers is going to go bye-bye.
All right, next question. So, talk about Draymond Green. He posted something on social media that a lot of people are, agreeing with what he said and stuff like that. But Draymond Green said that Adam Silver is one of the best CEOs, not just commissioners in sports business. Do you agree with that comment?
It's hard for me to disagree with it because I don't really have a counter to it. I think that Adam Silver's done an incredible job at finding a way to help the players and the corporate side of the NBA merge and work together. Because if you look at the NFL, overall, Roger Goodell's done a fairly decent job. That's the reason why he's got his job and he gets paid as much as he does, because at the end of the day, commissioners serve the owners. Owners are independent owners that are all coming together to work in one league. And a commissioner basically has to tend to all their needs. If you don't do that, you don't have your job. So Roger Goodell, credit to him for what he does. But let's be real. Every single day almost we hear about the NFLPA, Players Association, fighting with the NFL on something, and there's always this fight. And not to mention the fucking MLB, where they are constantly on strike, having problems, games being missed, this and that. Just Rob Manfred's a complete and total idiot. But the generation of revenue keeps coming in, so therefore they keep him employed. But he's an idiot. Looking at Adam Silver and knowing that although the NBA doesn't have the ratings of the NFL, there is a cohesion there that none of the other leagues have. And I think that is credit to Adam Silver. I do believe that David Stern helped bridge that gap a lot to kind of help elevate guys like Adam Silver and the next commissioners to follow. But I will give Adam Silver credit because you know why? Guys like Draymond Green don't bullshit. Yep. They tell the truth. And for him to say something like that, I have to agree with him just based on the principle alone, because of the fact that Draymond's one of the most outspoken individuals in the league, let alone all of sports, and he's saying this about Adam. So I'm just going to have to piggyback off what Draymond said and agree with him because of what I've seen and what Draymond knows.
Yeah, what I like about Adam Silver, I always do that. Adam Silver the most is because I think what he did was he bought into the culture of the players. Right, a lot of times, like the NFL is guilty of this as well. The NFL is the shield. It's all about the shield. This is why the NBA markets their players better than any other sport. NBA players have their own, there's no better athlete you can any sport as an athlete you can play in that you can build your own brand up. Like, you see their faces, they let their personalities shine, and that hasn't always been that way. Allen Iverson stuck out like a sore thumb because Allen Iverson, wore the baggy clothes to games. He wasn't suited and booted. He wasn't like the traditional pregame outfits. And now you see all these guys. It's like a thing when all these guys walk into. What are they wearing? It's like a new. It's become that's a recently new thing. They've allowed these guys to. When James Harden was wearing all these crazy outfits. Russell Westbrook wearing all these crazy outfits. It becomes almost like a side thing to get to know the individual. So I feel like the culture of the NBA has definitely changed a lot with him and his tenure here. And I feel like he's kind of bought into the players, let the players kind of really, really be themselves and use that, as a way to promote the game. And I think that's only helped and benefited the game to really, really, because look, man, the players and the product. right? And he's catering to the product. He wants these players to be happy. He wants these players to play in an environment that, feels comfortable for them. They don't want them to feel like they have to be something else. I think he's really allowing these players to be themselves has really helped the game and the marketability of the game as well. So I think that's one of the main things that's really giving Draymond Green that boost to want to say that proudly about him. Because I think he's really, really actually involved and actually enjoys the culture of these players and them being themselves and allowing, and the podcasting thing as well. We say Draymond Green's saying this on a podcast, his podcast. A lot of players, ex-players and current players have a lot of podcasts and platforms that they've been able to build their own brand. Never before have you really been able to see where you get to know players with their own way to go out there and speak for themselves a lot. A lot of times you have to find out, about players and their personality via interviews with the main markets and things like that. Nowadays, like Adam Silver just gives all these guys, not that he could tell them what or not to do, but these guys are all out there comfortably creating their own brands, and you can get to know these guys, and they're freely saying that about Adam Silver. I think that's the main thing, is he bought into the players' culture individually and let them be themselves and sell them as such. I think that's the main thing that has made him great.
This is just a question, a random question that I just thought about. Have you liked his handling of the situation that's happened with the Suns? Because we remember, if we remember back, what happened with the whole Clippers situation that they were forced to sell, with the little situation that happened. Do you think his handling of the Suns situation is different for a reason, or what's happening?
If I'm not mistaken, Robert Sarver had some was it racial comments that came out. I don't know if there was an actual recording of that or not, but I know that there was allegations, correct? By a lot of employees, which has to hold merit, because the working you gotta be able to take people at their word, especially if there's key witnesses and things of that nature. I think the difference, if we're trying to draw comparisons between what happened with the former owner of the Clippers, I forget the old dude's name. Anyway, they have an actual recording of him talking to his mistress, and they had to take swift and immediate action. Plus, that was Adam Silver's first year as an NBA commissioner, if I'm not mistaken, 2013.
Yeah.
So he had
that was
to
the first real big thing he did.
He had to bring the hammer down, because I remember Roger Goodell did the same thing when he took over from Paul Tagliabue. He had to do the same thing. He came down with the hammer. They started calling Goodell the Hammer because he wasn't playing around. Do I think that Silver has done the perfect job with the Sarver situation? No, because we're not going to hear about it. Until you brought it back up, I haven't heard shit about it. So he probably should be doing a better job about that one. So I'm not, as much as I'm giving him credit for what Draymond said, I don't want to give him over credit for what I'm not hearing him say about problems like this, because Robert Sarver, that's some deep shit, man. If he was really being racist, saying racial things, causing an uncomfortability in the workplace, that needs to be dealt with. And I'm hoping if Adam is who we think he is, Adam Silver is who we think he is, based upon the credit and clout that he's given by players, then I'm trusting that he's going to take care of this one the way that it needs to be taken, adequately and swiftly.
Yeah, I mean, the situation isn't resolved yet, right? Not everything is done and set in stone.
Still an investigation,
Yeah,
I believe.
it's still an ongoing thing. So I expect a decision to be made. I don't know. It's still up in the air for me. I don't really know how he's going to handle it. And plus, I mean, I'm just a bystander, an outside person looking in. So whatever he decides to do, when it's all done, whether he loses his job or whatever, if we think that's along the lines of losing your job for, which, I mean, anything like that from the top is the trickle effect. So anything like, ideologies that people carry and things like that, and that's not a good working environment, right? So people like that need to be let go. So I hope that's the case. If this is who this guy is and this is the working environment that he creates, the hammer does need to go down. You know what I mean? So I think Adam Silver has done nothing but make you believe that he is going to make the right decision. So until he doesn't, I'm going to hold him true to what he does and expecting him to do the right thing.
Donald Sterling was his name.
Sterling, thank you.
Yeah. Old Don.
So I'm guessing those recordings held a lot of weight as to why
they were
he
pretty
was
damning.
forced to sold.
Yeah, they were pretty damning, man.
I don't even want to repeat some of the shit he was saying on those recordings, but I did hear the whole excerpt, and it was brutal.
All right,
the boy was simping.
Frank Gore is officially retiring as a 49er. He signed his one-day contract. I want to get your thoughts on that.
Yeah, the unfortunate thing about me and my obsession with hearing other people's opinions and consuming sports content is I had the misfortune of hearing people and local media saying that Frank Clark isn't a Hall of Fame football player. You say Frank Clark?
Yeah.
Frank Clark's definitely not a Hall of Fame. Please don't clip that. But no, Frank Gore. People are saying Frank Gore is not a Hall of Fame player. Well, if Frank Gore isn't a Hall of Fame player, I need to know who and what the hell is, because as I see it, Frank Gore has the third most 1,000-yard rushing seasons in NFL history, has the third most rushing yards in NFL history, has the 19th most rushing touchdowns, and has the same yards per rush attempt as Marshall Faulk, LaDainian Tomlinson, and Larry Zonka. So, what more could this man be doing? I know everybody likes to use the what'd you do accomplishments-wise as for quarterbacks, because they have the majority of the control of how games go. Even I have a problem with that one. All the more so for running backs. What more could a Frank Gore could have done? I know people say, well, he was never at one point the greatest running back of his generation. Yeah, that's the case for a lot of quarterbacks and other guys that were played at even more higher magnitude.
That doesn't matter.
Exactly. And here's the other thing that people are forgetting. Do you guys realize that he was on the all-decade team for 2010s?
All right.
He came in the league in 2005, and he was in the all-decade team for 2010. Running backs usually have a shelf life of 2 to 3 years. This man played in the league for 17. He had a LeBron James trajectory when it came to staying healthy. You know how hard it is to stay healthy as a running back?
Especially a guy that has so much volume and work like he has.
Football players alone, it's difficult to stay healthy. This guy was getting hit for 15-plus years. And this dude went out there and had the third greatest career a running back's ever had. Has there been guys that had higher highs and higher peaks and did greater things in the playoffs? Yeah. But name me Frank Gore's quarterbacks. The best quarterback I think he ever had was Alex Smith. And we all know how he did in the playoffs. No offense, but it's just the truth. Frank Gore is 100% a Hall of Famer. Salute to him for still being in the NFL when his son's playing college football. Shout out to that champ.
Now he's out here knocking fools out.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think I think people are underestimating or downplaying, I should say, the accomplishment of what longevity is in the NFL, especially at the shortest shelf life of any position is a running back. It's 2 to 3 years. You know, I mean, no one takes more of a beating outside maybe offensive lineman, defensive lineman. You're constantly in the trenches every single play, getting banged around. But as far as volume and touches and rushes and yards and being tackled that many times as he has, running people over as many times as he has, I mean, the guy's been a freight train, and he was good until the end. He was never like there was never a moment where Frank Clark was a bad running back.
Right.
See, you got me now. See, that's your fault. I blame you. Frank Gore. There was never a moment where Frank Gore was a bad running back. Like, just get this guy out the field, and he was always contributing every time he was on the field. So, I'm with you. The numbers are behind him. The longevity, the ability to stay healthy like that. The guy's a freak. The guy's an anomaly, honestly. For as much volume, as much work as he's had, and the ability to stay healthy. Only a couple dings here and there in his career, nothing serious. So, yeah, in my mind, he's a Hall of Famer. I'm right there with you.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, you heard it here first. According to Lance and Trevor, Frank Clark is going into the Hall of Fame. So,
God damn it.
hey, maybe that means he's going to have a great year. I don't know.
Leave it at that.
Let's hope.
On Wednesday, we saw, obviously, a fun, good old golf match between Tom Brady, Aaron Rodgers, Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes. They were taking little jabs here and there on each other. It was all fun. I enjoyed watching it. What are your thoughts? Should they do this, I guess you can say, yearly kind of thing? Because it benefits...
children's charities,
Feeding America, and all that stuff. So,
oh no, I think it's great whenever you have. I thought it was great. I definitely enjoyed watching guys that had 9 combined Super Bowl championships, 6 regular season MVPs, and then Josh Allen play. That was really cool to see. Definitely enjoyed that. And I love the fact that on brand, Josh Allen was getting carried by Patrick Mahomes for the majority of the match. Literally, if Patrick Mahomes just had like one of us as his teammate, we would have won by 3 strokes. Because Patrick was by far. I mean, Aaron Rodgers had some really good drives in that one. I mean, on the tee he was insane. On the fairway he was really good. Aaron Rodgers was really good, but Patrick Mahomes was the best golfer of all of them, and it was not even close. And once he started chugging that swing juice, as he liked to say, that Coors Light, you saw him just get on fire. I watched the entire thing. I didn't miss a second of it. It was incredible.
I didn't get to watch it either.
Rodgers and Allen were boring as shit. Like, Rodgers was super boring. He talked shit like early on, like in the first couple of holes. Then you saw him like really hone in and focus. Josh Allen just sucked, and he's like a vanilla wafer. He just has like no personality whatsoever. Patrick was hilarious. Brady was hilarious. I mean, he starts off the damn thing before they even tee off. Let's fuck him up on TNT, which was just great. I told you guys I love Tom Brady's personality.
That's why I'm excited to see him on TV, dude.
I think he's an incredible personality.
He was great. He was great at the last one. Him and Peyton Manning, that was great,
him
bro.
and Charles' interaction.
Yes.
JJ Watt was awesome. Like it was very enjoyable. So to say the least, I enjoyed every bit of this. I wish Patrick could have won, but Aaron Rodgers just sunk that last putt, and it was incredible to watch.
Dude's a hell of a golfer, man.
I would like to see them focus more on the personality side of things, because I think having Josh Allen and Aaron Rodgers on there,
they tried.
It didn't really work as far as like personality, and we're here to watch this for entertainment.
That was his participation trophy.
I'm not sitting here going, man, this is a par 5. Hope they can get 4 strokes on this. I don't give a fuck about that. This isn't real golf.
Should have been Deshaun Watson.
You know what I mean? Yeah. I'm saying, like, go get some like real personalities out there, man. Go get like a Cam Jordan, get a Travis Kelce, get a George Kittle.
Hey, George Kittle would have been great.
Yeah, get like these guys that have notoriety in the league, that are big time names. Yeah, big time names that have big time personalities. I want guys like that.
Even Lamar Jackson would have been fun, bro.
Well, yes, I love the story that
Chris
Patrick
Haskett would have been great. Then.
Yes, he'd have been drunk by a whole 3. But no, like I love the story that Patrick had when he called it Lake Travis. He's like, I'm about to throw this into Lake Travis, and they kind of like nervously laugh. Like, what does he mean by that? He goes, "No, Travis Kelce has a putter inside that lake over there. Jimmy Fallon threw it in there." It's like it was hilarious. Like, stories like that are awesome, dude. Like he dropped his bag of ice and he had to pull back and get it. He's high fiving and bumping everybody driving by. It was very enjoyable. I just think that because this will continue, it's an annual thing.
Yeah,
I want to see them go more personality, because no one cares if these guys are good at golf. Yeah. It's there for the entertainment. It's there for fun. Let these guys go out there with some big names, big personalities. I think that'll improve it. But I loved it. It was good. It was really good.
Don't be like real golf. Have some personality. No, like I didn't get to watch any of it, man. I was literally at work the entire time this was airing, so I was like catching little clips on Twitter and stuff and what was happening. I was seeing like the highlights and things like that. I wish I could have sat and watched the whole thing. Yeah. But yeah, shit, I wish I could have been there. That's one of those events that I would actually love to go to. But yeah, I think this is definitely a yearly thing. They should make an annual thing. But just get guys that, I didn't really get to see the dullness of Josh Allen. I do like him, but I don't know, like, personality-wise, he's a guy that you can consistently have on the camera and have, just talking and creating good content. I just don't know if that's the case. But yeah, I did love the burn that Patrick Mahomes gave him before it even got started with when they said what is Josh Allen's biggest fear?
Coin toss,
dude. That was so. I was so glad he said that. We were all thinking it. I was so glad he said it.
Tom Brady was laughing. He was like, that's your teammate.
He burned Josh so bad, bro. And then Josh Allen was like, yeah, Patrick's biggest fear is letting me down, even though he ironically let him down. But yeah. I saw whatever I saw of the highlights, and I admit I didn't get to sit and watch it, but it was definitely a great entertainment as far as Patrick Mahomes and Tom Brady going at it. That's gonna be a fun thing to watch. Hopefully they can at least keep those two guys as like the pillars and like rotate other people in and out. That'd be great, because that camaraderie there is obviously built in between the two there with Patrick Mahomes and Tom Brady. So it's fun content, man. Anybody who likes any kind of competition, especially during the offseason, I think it's a great kind of like relief for to keep players engaged with NFL players. I think that's a great idea. But yeah, I enjoyed the highlights that I did watch, and I'm looking forward to watching the next one.
And I thought it was a great idea to have the TNT crew from NBA.
Yes, dude.
Do the
shit talk is so good.
Do the what is that called? Like
commentating.
Yes.
Commentating.
Especially Chuck, man. Having Chuck on.
Yes.
Ernie's so underrated too, because as soon as Tom said fuck him up, he goes, and there's our first one. He's just like, he was ready for it. You know what I mean?
Of course.
It's almost like Tom really tipped him off. You know what I mean?
I just love like their energy, and I love how they started cracking jokes on Shaq out of nowhere. They're like,
he's over here catching strays. He's not even there, bro.
Dude, they're the best, man.
Chuck was like, well, good thing, don't bring him here. We don't need him. I was like,
the best part I think of the whole thing though is Tom Brady like talking shit to the guy that was there to be the actual golf guy, the dude with the British accent. I don't know if you guys heard him. He was like, well, I think that what they should do is they should like hit more to the left side, so it roll down and go into the hole. And Tom Brady took his advice through the little earpiece, and then after he missed completely, he's like, yeah, I'm not listening to you ever again. Dude, it was so the exchanges they had, and then like 2 holes later, Tom's asking for his advice again. It was so great. Like the human aspect of it all. Like Rodgers is like, it's so weird too, because like obviously Brady's the more successful quarterback between him and Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah.
But like he's asking for Rodgers' advice because he's clearly the better golfer.
Yeah.
It's just a cool thing.
I love how they had communication with the commentators. I thought that was amazing because Chuck was talking that shit, and then Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, and Aaron Rodgers, Tom Brady would answer back. They would clap back. So it was amazing.
It's good TV, man.
Yep.
It was amazing. TV. They should do. This is something that they should do
live
every year.
Reality TV.
I was really hoping Patrick would have sunk that last putt because him and Charles had that bet that he would jump into the lake if Patrick made it. Patrick almost got it too. Imagine his chunky ass jumping in that lake. That'd have been hilarious.
Well, Josh Allen literally touched the hole, and it literally was touching the hole by like an inch.
Yeah,
dude, it was
the only good stroke of Josh Allen's entire day was that one when
he came so close.
Dude, the first tee off from Patrick Mahomes was insane, bro.
Was it 333 yards or some crazy
as we expected any less?
Something like that. Stroke.
Yeah, I love how the guys were like hit the ball and was like, was that good? Am I in the green? And the commentator was like, like
close. Josh Allen about killed 8 people out there.
Well, he actually did hit one.
Yeah.
It hit him in the head.
Yeah, dude.
There's a video out there online.
Hopefully Stage Steel wasn't watching.
Just hit the smack on the head. I was like, yeah. So, all right, moving from that to the last question. Will Deshaun Watson be suspended?
God damn, we went from one lighthearted topic to the most depressing one. Look, I made a post. I know it got a lot of reaction on both Twitter and Facebook, but looking at the situation as it is, guys, I mean, when I heard that Deshaun's the legality part of it, where he's not going to go to prison, has been established. Once I knew that, I was like, okay, he's clearly going to play again. That's not up for debate. But the win is the question here, because now, at least my mindset, because obviously there are 23 to 24 potential victims here. I want to be sympathetic and sensitive to that part of it. But I'm looking at this from the football side of things now, and the way I see it is, I don't know how the NFL is going to view all these civil lawsuits that are still there, and knowing that there is still an ongoing investigation from an independent investigator the NFL hired into this, and Roger Goodell can step in at any time if he wants to, how they can see these 23 to 24 lawsuits and say, yeah, this does not violate our personal conduct policy, because it's actually the letter of the law. How do I know that? Previous experiences from other players, like Jameis Winston. Our guy Shaggy Shane brought him up to me just yesterday in regards to this thread, where Jameis Winston supposedly had groped an Uber driver, and got 3 games for that. Did not serve time, didn't go to jail, didn't get arrested, nothing like that. Still served 3 games for that. Well, this is 24 different incidents. And yes, Deshaun's not going to go to prison for any of this. But this is still a big-time black eye on the NFL from an optics standpoint. And the NFL can't allow Deshaun Watson just to go out there and play week 1. So I don't scrap that completely, because I even think the Browns knew that he was going to serve some sort of suspension because of the way his base salary is set up for this season. I would be shocked, guys, if we don't see Deshaun suspended for at least half the season. And I will go as far as to say I think there's a good chance that we don't see Deshaun Watson play at all this season, because of the fact that last season, although Deshaun Watson didn't play at all, it wasn't the NFL that penalized him. What it was the Texans and Deshaun Watson having a disagreement of sorts, where he didn't want to ever play for them again. He was demanding a trade before any of this stuff came out. He was demanding a trade, and the Texans weren't willing to budge, so therefore Deshaun wasn't going to play. The NFL had nothing to do with that situation. And I think if the NFL wanted to utilize that as his punishment for this season, they would have put him on the commissioner's exempt list last year, where they ensured that he wouldn't have played, and that would have, in some way, been a suspension last season. Since he wasn't on the commissioner's exempt list last season, I think this year we're going to see him on the commissioner's exempt list, and I think he's going to serve at least 9 games this season. I'm going to say low end 9 games, high end the full season, and I think it's going to be more on the end of the not playing at all this season, because there's just too much backlash the NFL is going to have if they allow this guy to play 12 to 15 games this season. I just don't see how they can do that.
Yeah, I mean, this is tough, man, because like I said, there's still a lot of things up in the air right now to what we can speculate on what we think, so I guess that's what we're doing now. But I think he misses 4 or 5 games. And I think he plays out the rest of the season. I think he does play this year. That's just me throwing a number out there, to be honest with you. I don't really know what's going to come of this. I know he's not in any real legal trouble, but like the NFL has their own rules, like you've alluded to, and what they decide to do as far as what the optics are, and how it affects the brand, and yeah, that's a whole other discussion on what Goodell decides to do. And Goodell's got his own issues going on right now with, other lawsuits and things going on in his personal life with the NFL and Gruden and all that going on. So he's got a whole lot to worry about right now. But I do think Deshaun eventually gets cleared of everything. And I think the NFL has a decision to make on how many games he's going to miss, because he will miss some. I'm guessing 4 to 5 games, and then I do believe he continues his NFL career after that point.
That's it for me.
Great Eddie Hour, dude. We really appreciate it. That's always one of my favorite things to discuss in here in the Eddie Hours, the thought-provoking questions he has for us each and every week. And we have one more order of business to get to. Guys, what's it called? Hold This L! Each and every week, we finish off each and every episode with a series of L's in the world of sports. Whether those L's are friendly or not friendly L's in the world of sports, we promise you, whoever's holding these L's in the world of sports deserve those L's in the world of sports. Mr. Eddie Ortiz, Mr. Yo, who's holding the L for you this week, and is it F1 for a consecutive week?
Should it be?
I think, yeah, and that's just because I want to be right.
Yeah, I'm going to give it to Ferrari, Formula One team. They had everything to be a 1-2 finish in Monaco this past weekend. They literally qualified 1-2. Monaco is a very, very hard circuit to pass. So qualifying 1-2 pretty much would result in a 1-2 finish. But mistakes were made. Obviously, rain played a little factor into this race, to where third place Sergio Perez was pitted in early for intermediates. They went from wet to intermediates. It was a faster tire. Checo was just catching, and they decided to pit Leclerc, who was leading the race. He came out behind Checo, who was sitting second now, because Carlos Sainz took first after they pitted Leclerc. And then they decided to pick Carlos and go straight to the dries, to the slicks, to the hard tire. But on the outlap, Carlos Sainz was held back by traffic. It was just bad timing for the pit stop, and then they decided to bring Charles Leclerc 4 slicks at the same time they brought Carlos Sainz. So that meant Charles Leclerc went from first to fourth, and then Carlos Sainz went from obviously first to second, and Checo Perez took the lead of the race, and then Max Verstappen came in third, and then obviously the Ferraris pushed, but they couldn't do anything. It, like I said, it's a very, very hard track to pass. There's really not much you can do. And Ferrari, they had it made, and custom mistakes cost them a great result. So for the reason, Ferrari Formula One team, you're gonna have to
hold this L. Trevor Tweedle, who's holding the L for you this week?
Got a little clip I'm gonna play here real quick.
Cool.
I'm gonna take my clothes off.
Doggy, I just think you're pointing the finger in the wrong direction. That's why Stephen Naismith is here to the rescue, baby. That's why I'm here for you. Here's the deal.
It's not Steph Curry's fault because Steph Curry can shoot. Steph Curry, he changed it. People say he changed the game. No. He elevated it to a point where it was acceptable because you're looking for somebody to produce somewhere close in the vicinity of what he does and what Klay Thompson does to a slightly lesser degree, okay? But the reality is, you know who the biggest culprit for all of this is? It's Mike D'Antoni. He knows that. He played for Mike D'Antoni. Mike D'Antoni wanted you to shoot threes or layups. He didn't want no mid-range game. He would consider benching you if you took a mid-range shot. Am I lying?
Except for me, I mean, I shot a lot of mid-range.
Not you. But those guards that he put out there,
absolutely.
If they launched mid-range shots instead of three, doggy, he didn't like it. Yeah. I'm going to tell you something else because you'll appreciate being a historical individual that you are. That Molly so eloquently stated earlier today. Okay, Molly's going to explain it the way it needs to be explained. Okay, but here's the deal. My brother, the guy I love so much, that I believe is the greatest player to have ever played, Michael Jordan, is responsible as much as anybody for changing the game for the worse when you consider you. Stay with me on this. Okay. This is throwing no shade on Michael Jordan, of course. He's the greatest ever in my estimation, number one, all right? But he was so phenomenal that the NBA marketed the individual, the audience gravitated towards the individual, and the game became a bit more individualized because people wanted to be like Mike. Before Mike, you had Bird and Magic. But what was Bird and Magic? As great of a shooter as Bird was, as Mr. Clutch as he was, okay? Bird could pass, Bird could rebound, Bird had McHale, he had Parrish, he had Dennis Johnson, he had Gerald Henderson, he had a whole bunch, Danny Ainge and others. They had a team, all right? Blue collar, but team. Well, what was Magic? Magic was Showtime. As phenomenal as Magic was, what was his number one attribute? Passing. So guess what? He inherited Norm Nixon. You had Jamal Wilkes, all right? You had Kareem. All of a sudden, you got Worthy. You got go from Norm Nixon to Byron Scott. You still got Michael Cooper. You got Michael Thompson. You had Kurt Rambis. The list goes on and on. And you marveled. And think about this. You had guys once upon a time that would grab rebounds and want to dribble. Magic came along, and the first thing you did was grab that rebound. Where's Magic? Here you go. And Magic pushed the ball up the court. He had Worthy on his right. He had Byron Scott on his left. He had Cooper trailing. And if that didn't materialize into fast break points, then they'd slow it down and wait for Kareem. What I'm saying is you were thinking team until Jordan elevated it to another level. And from Jordan, then you had the Kobe's, the Vince Carters, and others that came along thereafter. And the individualization of the sport, particularly because of the money that came with it, became more of a focal point. So I would tell you Mike D'Antoni in terms of three-point shooting.
Okay, that's enough. Listen, I understand what Stephen A. Smith is trying to say there and what point he's trying to make, but it's not a good point and it makes no sense. Because all he's talking about, he's saying it changed the game for worse. It didn't change the game at all. All it did was market the game better. That's all this did. Michael Jordan, the way it did individualize the star player to a higher degree, but that did nothing but help the game because no matter what, at the end of the day, it still takes a team. Michael Jordan didn't win shit until he had a team, right? Michael Jordan was great. He was very marketable when he was losing in the first round. He was still Michael Jordan. It doesn't matter. It still takes a team to win these games. The Mavericks, I just talked about that Dirk Nowitzki Mavericks team. Who was the more marketable team? It was obviously the Miami Heat, but the better team at that time, won because they had that point is so silly to me, man, because that's the evolution of this game is because of the marketability of these stars and because of and today, look at today. We got star players with podcasts. We got star players, all these things because of Michael Jordan helping evolve that game. You know, all these LeBron James, you know, pretty much creating a new culture for players to have more power and to push for trades if they're not comfortable in the situation they're in or whatever, you know, or have a voice for one. You know what I mean? So I get what he's trying to say, and it makes sense when you first think about it. Like it did change the game, but it didn't change the game for worse. That's where he's wrong. Michael Jordan did not change the marketability of Michael Jordan in pushing the idea of stars and star players and the leader of a team and the alpha of the team or whatever. That's not changing the game for worse. It only made the game, and honestly, it made recruiting and trying to find that guy better for teams. Because you have to have a leader of a team. I mean, you talk about, he was talking about Bird as if Bird wasn't a star and the leader of that team. Everyone knew Larry Bird was the alpha of that team. Everyone knew that. He was very marketable. He was one of the most biggest trash talkers ever in the NBA. Everyone knew that was Magic's team. The Showtime Lakers was Magic's team. Obviously, Kareem was obviously a star, but Magic was the mouthpiece. He was the sexy, highlight reel, blah, blah, blah. This was going on even before. He was trying to downplay the impact of the Magic and Bird as if they weren't glorified superstars at the time. They were the biggest names in getting shoe deals, and when Converse and Reebok was taking over. MJ obviously took it that and more because he was better than both of those guys, but changing it for worse, that's where you're wrong, Stephen A. So I just don't understand that. I just feel like a lot of times these old head guys try to make it sound like today's NBA is so bad because the 3-point shot or the flashiness of the game and or quote unquote lack of defense and things like that. I just feel like that's kind of where he was alluding to, and Steph Curry being the guy that sexualized the 3-point shot and all that. It's done nothing but help the game. It's adding new skill sets to the game, the skill sets that weren't even thought of back in those days, even in MJ's era. The game continues to evolve, and these athletes continue to evolve as better players, and it's only helped, not in a negative way. It's only helped the league in its marketability and its product and players, and we got Joel Embiid's out here, and the evolution of these bigs that can do what they do nowadays never would have happened if the game didn't evolve the way it has. Right, so I just think he's dead wrong there. So for that, Stephen A. Smith, do me a solid favor and hold this L.
Just to add to that real quick, so I guess guys like Tim Hardaway made the game worse when they, he revolutionized the crossover. Allen Iverson, guys like that,
right?
Because everybody started wanting to do
guys that
crossovers
changed
as
the
opposed
culture.
to just dribbling with one hand all the time, like bouncing with the flat hand like this, like Bob Cousy.
I just don't understand how it affected
the guys that started dribbling with both hands. I guess they revolutionized the game for worse. Like, where does that end? And, I'm glad you pick.
When Michael Jordan won 6 championships, was that a negative to the game?
Well, dynasties and stuff like that.
Yeah, I mean.
Well, and it's funny, too, because like you said, I was glad you mentioned it because I was going to mention it, like the fact that Larry Bird and Magic not only predate Michael, but their popularity predates him significantly because they're the ones.
Superstars.
It wasn't Michael that saved the game. It wasn't him that revolutionized the game in some regard.
Lakers rivalry
because they fell into the right places too. Because two of the most historic franchises get guys that match their cities and their cultures seamlessly.
Oh, I just don't like the idea that because he individualized a superstar, that takes away the idea of team.
It makes it worse.
The idea of team basketball.
That's absurdity.
How does that take away? Because LeBron James, arguably the biggest star to ever come out of the NBA. He's right up there with anybody else.
Yes.
Is 100% a team first player. Is he not been individualized and they've not made crazy amount of money, singling him out as the king of the league? Mm-hmm. Yet he's a pass first player.
Yeah.
Well, what do you mean?
And speaking of LeBron, that was a quick little dub I wanted to throw out there, a little W.
Hey, I was gonna, yeah.
I want to give a shout out to the GOAT. That's right. I don't give a fuck if any of you guys have a problem with me. I know you guys. I know you guys love to call me Trevor, whatever names you want to call us. I know you guys are mad because the facts don't lie. The greatest player to ever live, LeBron James, who's still active, is now the only and first active NBA player to ever become a billionaire.
He's still playing.
So, shout out to LeBron James for becoming a billionaire. Because a man from Akron had no father, no real future outside of athleticism, became a mogul, and is now a billionaire athlete, a billionaire human being. Shout out to LeBron James, the greatest to have ever done it. I want to give a shout out to somebody else who is the cringiest motherfucker in all of sports.
I knew you were going to do this.
So I just want you guys close your eyes. Do me a favor. Anybody that's watching, whether you're watching on a pre-recorded YouTube video or you're watching live with me, just close your eyes and tell me if you think this is the same person.
Just put my jersey on for the first time. Broncos orange, let's ride. Green screen in it with my boy. Let's go. We in the orange, baby. Let's go. Let's ride, baby. Ooh, so clean right now. Let me know what we doing. I have my boy Drew. I got 1-4 with me. 1-4 with me. Hey. Yes, sir. So what we gonna do? Yes, sir.
Boring, yes, Russ.
Guys, Russell here. Yes, the typical boring, yes, Russell, the robot Russell, the one you guys love to know. Real exciting. I'm real excited. But anyways, everybody has to have an alter ego.
So that was the same person. Open your eyes. Please open your eyes.
An alter ego.
That's the same person. I got me one fall with me. Show 'em what we gonna do. Yeah. Oh, yeah, dog. Ooh, yeah. Hi, everyone. It's me, Russell, the really exciting guy. Yeah, really exciting.
You fucking talk shit on Mr. Unlimited.
Everyone's gotta have an alter ego.
Hey, we always talk about the Broncos, man. We gotta chill.
I think Mr. Russell Wilson has an identity crisis here, and it's becoming so obnoxious. Like, I'm not here to bash Broncos fans. I get it, man. Be excited because Russell Wilson is a surefire Hall of Fame quarterback who's still really good, and that's going to help your team. I know that's got to be exciting because you guys have been dog shit for the last 7 years. So I'm not even trying to be facetious. I'm being serious. Like, that's got to be exciting.
You guys have been respectively dog shit.
But this motherfucker is so painful to listen to. Let's ride. Let's ride, Broncos country. Let's ride. Let's ride, Broncos country. Let's ride. Let's ride. Hey, me, it's Russell Wilson here. Really exciting guy. Really, really exciting guy. Dude, who the fuck are you? Like, which one is the real you, bro? Hey, Seattle. Really, really exciting guy here. Like, which guy is it? Like, imagine if we did that on here. This is the Spoken Podcast. Hey, this is the Spoken Podcast. Imagine if I alternated those between episodes. Like, that's just incredible, man. It's so cringy. Then Ciara goes out there and has that twerk video in front of the gas station. Like, what are these people doing? Oh, they're living their best life. No, they're living the cringy life because this shit is just hard to fathom. Yeah. It's just incredible, man. So for that, Russell Wilson and your 19 different personalities, do me a solid, bruh, and hold this L. Hold this L.
Hold this up, please, sir.
My dude Seth Kaiser, thank you so much, man, for everything you do at the Athletic KC and at the Chief in the North newsletter. Please go subscribe to my guy. Go follow him on Twitter. Great dude. Great content. As you guys heard, he broke it down so well on this show. We love having him on. We'll have him on hopefully either before the season starts or during the season, man. We're definitely going to get him back. Had a great time with him. The Eddie Hour was awesome today. I love the L's that we handed out. It was worth $1 billion, if you will, like LeBron James. It was a great episode. Had a ton of fun, guys. We're going to continue to do that. As I say over these last several weeks, Trevor's been saying it as well. If you guys would be so kind, go to our YouTube channel, subscribe to that. We're trying to monetize this thing, trying to grow this thing, get more merch, things of that nature, man. We want to make this a lot more interactive with you guys as well. We definitely want to hear your guys' viewpoints and opinions. That is what the Spoken is all about. That does not change from platform to platform, whether it's here live streaming or whether it's on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. We want to hear from you guys. We want to hear your opinions. We value your opinions. But in the meantime, for Trevor Twidwell, for Eddie Ortiz, Mr. Yo, for the great Clay Wendler that puts all this together, and for Seth Kaiser from the Athletic KC and the Chief in the North newsletter, I am Lance Twidwell. Episode 170 of the Spoken Podcast is done, finished, and finito. And until we're here next week at 171, we out of this bitch.